West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
It's 6 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. We're kicking it off today. Big day today. Colorado's blue, America's red. It all meets right here on the Jeff and Bill Show. Jeff Crank's going to be joining us in the 8 o'clock hour. The big, beautiful bill passed in the House by one vote last night. Maybe this morning. I don't even know exact times. But
how glad are some? This is awful for me to say, but how glad are some people that perhaps Jerry Connolly passed away recently? Because he's a Democrat and he could have tried it. I know, but he would have tied. He would have tied it. It would have been a tied vote. This vote would not have moved forward.
Really?
If Jerry Connolly didn't pass away from esophageal cancer in the past, 48 hours.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, this thing's tied. Yeah, so without him passing away, this big, beautiful bill is done. That's crazy to think about. Yeah, so what we're going to have later on today is the Democrats putting an age requirement on how long you can serve in Congress. It was in the 70s. So, yeah.
Well, somebody pointed out the last 5, 6, 7 members of Congress that have died were all Democrats.
Yeah. It's almost like they know Vladimir Putin. Okay, I'm teasing.
Bill's spicy this morning. Goodness. Yeah, we're going to talk big, beautiful Bill. We're going to talk this shooting that took place in Washington, D.C. 2 Israeli embassy staffers killed. Video now coming out. This guy that shot him yelling, "Free, free Palestine." And then he had one of those caliphs, I think is what they're called.
Yeah.
So terrible news coming out. Jews can't even go to a reception without worried about being gunned down. This guy specifically targeted them at the Capitol Jewish Museum, where the American Jewish Committee was hosting a reception for young diplomats. It was a couple. This
is awful.
Very young Jewish couple. It was terrible. Jeez. So we'll give you the latest details on that. Dan Negomir, editorial page editor of the Denver Gazette, will be joining us on the opinion piece, calling out Polis for withholding funds from local communities for not buying into high-density development. They've got an opinion piece, an editorial piece about this, as cities like Greenwood Village and others are going to be suing the governor on this new law. So we'll get the latest from the Denver Gazette. So lots of news, plus Trump's meeting with the South African president yesterday and what's happening in South Africa. We'll give you all the details on that. Now is time for your morning dose of news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson,
news and comment.
Good Thursday morning. It's 45 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 77 today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
I'm just going to be very blunt about it. There was a few moments over the last week when it looked like the thing might fall apart. And I went to the little chapel over here and got on my knees and prayed that these guys would have wisdom and stamina and discernment. And that's the secret here, and teamwork.
And that's Speaker Mike Johnson. It has been a crazy last 35 minutes. DJT's big, beautiful bill has just passed the House. Lawmakers have approved the massive spending plan, 215 to 214, as Jeff and Billy were just discussing. All Democrats and 2 Republicans voted against the bill. The bill, if it becomes law, would make big cuts to Medicaid. It says it would also add new requirements to food assistance, eliminate taxes on tips, while putting billions toward fighting illegal immigration and nationwide missile defense system, the missile defense system. It would make tax cuts on the nation's highest earners permanent and eliminate Biden-era green energy tax credits. The bill now goes to the Senate, where lawmakers have already promised to make changes. Jim Jordan.
Told them last fall, you elect us, we will secure the border. President Trump has done that. We allocate resources in this bill to make sure it stays secure. We told people last fall, you elect us, we will respect moms and dads. We will let you have school choice where you can pick the school where your son or daughter is going to get the best education. And we told people last fall, you elect us, we're going to treat you with the respect you deserve. Able-bodied people in our welfare system will have to work if they're going to get your money. This bill does what we said we were going to do. That's why it's a good day for our country.
And a few minutes ago, here's Kentucky's Representative Comer.
Our one big beautiful bill cuts taxes for hardworking Americans and small businesses, putting more money directly back into the pockets of those hardworking Americans. It provides critical resources to secure our border and deport criminal illegal aliens, the same dangerous individuals that Joe Biden allowed to flood into our country every day. It restores American energy dominance by rolling back the radical Green New Deal scam and unleashing domestic production. And it takes direct aim at waste, fraud, and abuse in Washington, making government more efficient and more accountable for the American taxpayer.
So it's going to be a busy day at the Capitol and at the White House here on Thursday as the sun rises now here in the West, and it is 8:05 Eastern time. So they're about to really get going on this. A lot of activity there as we speak. Israel is tightening security as its embassies around the world after a deadly shooting in D.C. Last night. Prime Minister Netanyahu announces increased protection for Israeli diplomatic sites following the killing of 2 embassy staffers near a Jewish museum. The shooter reportedly shouted about Palestine, of course, you would imagine, during his arrest. Netanyahu blames the attack on anti-Semitism and rising hostility toward Israel. Police are investigating a shooting that left 2 men wounded in Aurora. Officers were called to the 3100 block of Ursula Street around 7:15 last night. The wounded men were taken to a local hospital, and one reportedly had life-threatening injuries. No information about possible suspects has been released. A teen driver is facing charges after failing to stop for police and then crashing in Arvada. Police say they tried to pull over a speeding driver on Wads early Tuesday morning. The suspect allegedly increased speed and tried to get away, but wound up crashing into a light pole in a gas station parking lot. The driver is already facing charges for eluding police in Jefferson County last month. His new charges include eluding, DUI, and reckless driving. China is warning the U.S. to hit pause on 47's ambitious new missile defense plan. Beijing says it's gravely concerned about Trump's plan to build a $175 billion Golden Dome missile shield, which he says will be ready in under 3 years.
We have no advantage anymore.
That's right. And let's see, this is pretty funny.
Come on,
the
China?
statement is
like China's mad that we're building a defense system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where is it? Let's see.
Sorry.
They're so
sorry your feelings are hurt.
They said it'll increase the chance. Let's see. They don't want it the fighting going on in space because they want to hear on Earth. Where is it? I can't find the statement. It's funny.
Well, I've talked to leaders in the military who have said, yeah, if we went to war with China, it would not work out well for America. China is
exactly.
They have invested in a very robust Air Force military operations, satellites, all that stuff. So, yeah, I'm so sorry that your advantage to attack the United States has been thwarted China.
Exactly.
In fact, this makes me want a Golden Dome harder.
Right, exactly. Let's build a double one. Triple it. 2 women. What is it up with women in jails and prisons this month? 2 women facing charges related to that jailbreak in New Orleans. They were accused of helping some of the men evade capture for almost a week now. 5 of the escapees have been caught, while 5 remain on the run. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com. And the Eastern Conference Finals last night, wow. Pacers come back. They hit a 3. It looked like a 3. But foot on the line, so a 2-pointer that bounced off the rim straight up into the air through the nylon. You think they win. It ties the game. They go into overtime and they beat the Knicks. So big win for the Pacers. 43 in Highlands Ranch, 44 in Brighton, 45 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. The big, beautiful bill has passed the House. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast. Morning temperatures will be in the mid-40s under a clearing sky. Then skies throughout our Thursday will be sunny. Highs will be in the middle and upper 70s with lows upper 40s Thursday night. Cannot rule out a couple evening thunderstorms Thursday. Shower and thunderstorms, though, will pick up more in coverage by late Friday, continuing Memorial Day weekend. Highs mid-80s and lows lower 50s on Friday. Weather brought to you by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather. Schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection at roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, terrible news coming out of Washington, D.C. Here's what we know about the deadly shooting outside the Jewish Museum in D.C. New York Times reporting. A gunman shot and killed 2 employees of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday night outside an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum. The shooter, who was taken into custody shortly after the killings, shouted pro-Palestinian slogans after he was detained. Early indicators are that this was an act of targeted violence. Dan Bongino, deputy director of the FBI, wrote on social media. So what happened? The shooting happened just after 9 p.m. on a street outside the Capitol Jewish Museum, where the American Jewish Committee was hosting a reception for young diplomats. The museum is in the heart of official Washington. Among federal buildings, embassies, and other museums, the U.S. Capitol and the FBI's Washington field office and headquarters of the Justice Department are all nearby. A suspect had been seen pacing in front of the museum before the shooting. According to police, he approached 4 people who were leaving the event, shooting 2 of them at close range, and then entered the museum, where he was detained by security officers. Mr. Bongino said that the suspect was being questioned by the Washington police in conjunction with the FBI's counterterrorism team. So who is the suspect? Officials named Elias Rodriguez, a 30-year-old man from Chicago, is the only suspect in the killings. Mr. Rodriguez chanted, "Free, free Palestine," after the police took him into custody. Pamela Smith, the chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, said. She added that Mr. Rodriguez told the police where he had discarded the gun he had used. Bill, you remember I spent 4 days with Palestinian protesters in Chicago, and I described being around them as like being around a grizzly bear.
Yeah, you did.
That you just had no idea when they would turn. And one guy in a Jewish or Israeli flag would walk by, and it was like kicking off a hornet's nest. I mean, they would turn and be viciously anti-Semitic. So, yeah, I mean, this guy yelling "Free, free Palestine." But who were the shooting victims? The victims were 2 Israeli embassy employees whom the Israeli government identified as Yaron Lizchinsky, 30 years old, and Sarah Lynn Milgram, 26, an American from Prairie Village, Kansas. Mr. Lizchinsky, originally from Nuremberg, Germany, moved to Israel when he was 16. Yaron and Sarah were our friends and colleagues. They were in the prime of their lives. I mean, this is a young couple. They look like in their maybe mid to late 20s, early 30s. Mr. Lizchinsky and Miss Milgram were about to be engaged. That's heartbreaking. The young man purchased a ring this week with the intention of proposing to his girlfriend next week in Jerusalem. And both of them killed here. Mr. Lizchinsky was a research assistant in the embassy's political department. Ms. Milgram organized diplomatic missions and visits to Israel, according to Israel's foreign ministry. What are U.S. and Israeli officials saying? Israeli officials expressed shock and described the shootings as an anti-Semitic act of terrorism. I've been worried for the past few years that something like this was going to happen, said Israel's foreign minister at a news conference on Thursday morning. They drew a connection between Wednesday's killings and the pro-Palestinian protests that have been taking place in the United States and other countries since Israel went to war against Hamas. This is a direct result of toxic anti-Semitism against Israel and Jews around the world that's been going on since October 7th. You know, what I found challenging about interviewing the Palestinians in Chicago was it was hard to have a discussion because the news they consumed was so radically off base.
Yeah.
Right? There was no common ground for a debate because they would go, well, no. The captives actually loved being hostages in Gaza.
They had their own alternative facts, to quote a former spokesperson.
They just lived in this world where they're like, no, don't you understand? The hostages write thank you notes in love and affection back to their Hamas captives.
Yeah.
And they wish they could end Zionism. And you're just like, I'm watching actual videos of people, and they're not coming back into Israel going, guys, end Zionism and let me go back to Gaza.
Yeah, not a single one of them after they've been released has asked to go back. That's odd. But again, this is because of confirmation bias, and we run across this a lot of times. It is very difficult for any human to change their thought process once they've already come to a conclusion. And the people that are supporting violent action by Hamas and sort of outgrowth of what's happening in Palestine view the violence as a necessary response. Now, I'm not saying that all of them. I'm just saying there are portions of them, and you ran into some of them in the protests in Chicago, where you asked about Israel's right to exist, and they were, no, it doesn't. And they went as far as that the Jewish people shouldn't exist, and that's the issue that's much larger inside of this, as with this shooter, taking out 2 Jewish citizens at, one's conversion, etc. One came from Germany, one from the U.S. What did you accomplish? Now, you could say that you don't like Luigi Mangione, but he did get the CEO. I mean, if you were talking about a hierarchy of death, he came for the king. And this person went after people that have no ability to affect change and they have no decision-making process in how the war is prosecuted,
kill Jews,
what's going on,
and scare them.
And that's the problem that we have in this one, is there can be a rationalization behind people that are supporters of Mangione going, oh yeah, he was going after the head and he's telling all the CEOs to watch out, etc. These are just 2 Jewish citizens that are working for the state. That's it. That is random violence that basically, in my mind, does confirm the idea that people that are virulent supporters of Hamas and in some ways the Palestinian nation do believe that violence is the answer and the death of the Jewish citizens is the problem. And that's one of the problems I have on the other side with something like with Donald Trump talking about removing all the Palestinians from Gaza in order to redevelop it. You're taking away the state. I'm not going to support either side in this, taking away either the Israeli state or a Palestinian state. I don't think that is where we should be in this process either way. And this is just random violence to scare Jewish people. This is scary. And what does it accomplish at the core other than terror? This is an act of terrorism, more so, I feel, than Luigi Mangione's shooting, because not many of us are CEOs, but many of us are average citizens, and there are many average Jews.
You got to think
scary.
the Jews
it's
this
really
morning
scary.
sending your kids to school. I mean, they can't. These kids can't walk to school. Can't ride their bikes, can't go to a park.
Well, here's the thing is,
I mean, you just never know.
Well, here's the thing is, they can, but they can't do it as Jewish kids. That's the real scary part, is as a parent, you could still, if your kid isn't wearing the yarmulke or doesn't have the Star of David, you can still fly under the radar, but that is not okay to say that in order to not get shot, you have to take off your religion, and you have to hide your religion. That's crazy. And the idea that you can send your kid, there were a lot of people that are Jewish and of other faiths that go to private Catholic and Christian schools. But if you go to a Jewish school, more times than not, just based on it, you don't have a lot of Christians. You don't have a lot of Buddhists going to the Jewish school. And so there, as parents, you can't take your kids to the Jewish school. What do you do about going to temple? What do you do there? And so all of those gatherings that are they're so scary. And so basically, this to me is the core of terrorism. This is an act that is telling average Jewish citizens that you are not safe anywhere, and if you are engaged in anything that is perceived by these people as being, and I'm using air quotes at this point, Jewish, you can be shot, because they'll wait outside those organizations, those places of business, those places of gathering, and they'll wait for you. This is scary. This is scary in a way I believe the Mangione shooting isn't. This is real scary.
This is... both of them are wrong, but this was
110%. Yeah.
And this guy, the suspect, Elias Rodriguez, not quite the traditional Palestinian name.
Yeah, not at all.
So how did he get radicalized? Yeah. Who brought him in? And he's from Chicago. When I was there, mosques were busing in the protesters.
Oh wow!
And they had all these big school buses and different names of the different mosques.
Interesting.
That were in Chicago.
And I'd be curious, again, since he's from Chicago, I would be curious if he participated in those protests. I doubt, just based on the number of people, I doubt that you brushed into him, but that would be really spooky to find out that he was at those protests in Chicago and you were there possibly a dozen feet or so away from that individual that later would decide that 2 Jewish citizens need to die. That's scary.
Very
it's
scary.
Real scary.
All right, bad news, sad news, very sad news
horrible.
Coming out of Washington, D.C. with the death of 2 young Jewish people set to be engaged next week, murdered by a radical anti-Semitic terrorist. So we'll continue with the news. I want to talk to you about our friends over at the Colorado Farm Bureau. Whether you pulled out your skis or snowmobiles this last winter, it was a great year for winter fun, but the snow means even more to Colorado agriculture. And I want you to know that our state's farmers and ranchers are doing their part to protect our future water resources. The people of Colorado agriculture always have conservation, efficiency, reuse top of mind when it comes to water use. As the metro area continues to grow, Colorado Farm Bureau leads talks with state policymakers about preserving water for all areas of the state as pressure on the water system grows. It's going to take all of us to find a solution. My friends at the Colorado Farm Bureau are leaders in water conservation and water policy. They understand how to balance water for crops and water for families, and they're doing more with less. You could do your part. I recommend you join and become a member today. Go to coloradofarmbureau.com. That's coloradofarmbureau.com to join those great people there. All right, we'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Bill, it's a big, beautiful plane coming to the United States. U.S. formally accepts a luxury jet from Qatar for DJT. Now, this they're anticipating is roughly around $200 million. Originally, it was said to be around $400 million, but I've read that plane experts say that the actual estimated worth is somewhere around $200 million. It has been given not to Donald Trump, but to the United States Air Force. So it's been a gift to the United States Air Force that they can use. And DJT wants it retrofitted, updated, and improved because the Boeing jets are taking a long time to be delivered, and they're way past the expenditures. Do you know they're like $2 billion even at this point?
Oh, yeah.
Past the
Huge.
price.
But what do we know about Defense Department spending? Takes too long, huge cost overruns.
Sounds like anything the government does.
Yeah, well, especially in that department because there's no real reason to have any constraint on spending. I mean, of all the groups as far as the government, the Defense Department has the least constraint on their spending because all they have to say is, don't you want to protect you? Why don't wait? We're trying to protect you. So it's very difficult to talk about constraining their spending. So, of course, here's the weird part on this. You're going to have to retrofit this plane.
Yes.
Which includes taking
more
apart.
money.
Yeah, which includes taking apart the structure because this thing's going to have to be stripped down. You're going to have to take off plant panels. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to strip electronics. Also, you're going to have to go through it to find the bugs. Yeah. Because remember, Qatar is an ally of Iran. And they're still probably pissed about that pager stunt that Israel pulled off.
I was going to say, considering what they did with pagers.
Yes. Yeah, I know. And that was a really small, tiny electronic device, and it was a small explosion. But small explosions in certain areas of a plane can cause huge disasters. So they're going to have to scrub this plane. They're going to have to yank out. I wouldn't leave any of the native electronics inside because you don't know what's been altered. So you're probably going to have to strip the electronics, and then you're going to have to retrofit everything from the fuselage to the wings, everything. And just curious, you know who's going to be doing that, right? Boeing. The company that's not delivering the plane now.
I'm not sure it is. I know they're looking at some other defense contractors that may do that. But
let's see about that one.
The thing is, the whole issue is a really good example of just how crazy our government is, right? Because I just asked a simple question: what's wrong with the current Air Force One?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Can we just start there? Okay, the thing's been in service since 1990.
Yeah.
So it's over 30 years old.
Yes.
Okay, but its platform, the commercial platform, first flew in the 1970s.
Yeah.
Okay. Maintaining the aging aircraft is becoming more costly, less reliable over time. Obsolete technology is part of the problems. Avionics, communication systems, security features are outdated compared to modern capabilities. Upgrades are limited by the old architecture of the aircraft. It's developing high maintenance costs because parts are no longer widely manufactured. Custom replacements are often required. The cost to maintain and operate the current plane is significantly higher than newer models. Fuel efficiency. The older planes are less fuel efficient than modern aircraft, and it needs enhanced security and communication. So, dude, we are stuck right now with 4 planes that are outdated, insufficient, delayed, or way outside our cost, the original cost, 4 of them. And neither of them work to meet the needs of the President of the United States at this point, which is, I mean, I'm not sure I fully agree with Trump taking this, mostly out of a cost analysis, right? So do I see it as a personal gift from Qatar to Trump? Not really. I see it kind of as a goodwill gift, and partly I don't give planes to friends, but when friends end up with a new job or something, I like to send them a little something, right? I think it's a nice gesture to do. Qatar has lots of money. They want to gift the United States, have a better working relationship with the United States. That doesn't offend me so much. But what does get me? we're already $2 billion over budget on the 2 planes that everyone approved to be built, and they're not going to be delivered for likely, maybe even possibly another decade. A decade. They're so far behind. Okay? So the plan, retrofit another plane, spend the money there, that's what gets me on this. And our current plane is already 30 years old. To me, it's just a perfect example of how inefficient our government is. You have 4 planes and none of them work. 4 planes and none of them work for your needs.
And this one's 13 years old that we're getting. So again, not a new plane. It's a 13-year-old plane.
That's a great point.
And the cost is going to be somewhere around $1 billion to retrofit it. And do you think that's going to be accomplished in the next 3 months? No. Do you think it'll be accomplished in the next 6? No.
Yeah.
Now, given how well that the other one has been going, do we have any indication this will be finished before the end of Trump's term? No. I think you got 50-50 shot that this will even be finished before Trump's term. So what could happen is we retrofit the plane, and then Trump wants to take this plane to his library, so we put all the stuff in, and the thing gets like a dozen air miles, and then has to be mothballed.
Out.
Yeah, it has to be stripped out. So we spend all the money to put the stuff in, and then all the money to take it back out. That's government efficiency.
So, Bill,
at its finest.
On one article analysis I saw said, okay, well, Trump could get the plane to fly around in, but it may not have all the security that a traditional Air Force One would have. So he's going to have to settle for less security. I mean, if he's the president of the United States, he's like, look, I'm tired of flying around in this plane that's 30 years old that has all these things breaking on it. I'm willing to risk it. I'm willing to risk the security. I just want to have a better experience flying. Does that bother you?
Yeah, tremendously. Because if that is the mindset, then what's going to happen is Iran is going to pick up their red phone and they're going to call Vladimir Putin and go, tell me about those missiles that you shot down the guy that was rebelling against you when he was the mercenary running the war against Ukraine. Dude was on the plane. He got a missile and just took the dude out. Can we talk about this? And in the meantime, they're going to create a Zoom or a conference call with Xi in China and say, let's talk tech. What do I need to do to nail this plane? Because all 3 of those countries would feel something great has been done if Air Force One falls out of the sky and, God forbid, Donald Trump dies. But you don't think that Iran, after some of the saber rattling and things that Trump has been doing, you don't think that Putin would take this opportunity to create major instability in the U.S.? Now, I'm not saying Putin would be the one to fire the missile. He'd have someone else do it. But he would tell Iran exactly how to do it, because that's what Putin specializes in. These missiles that all of a sudden take planes out. Poison that takes out enemies. That's Putin's game.
You don't think the left, though, would go, well, Donald Trump wants to fly around in a less secure jet. Who am I to stop him?
Yeah, and I think they would be wrong. Yeah, it would be completely and totally stupid. But again, and I hate to bring this up, but I'm going to bring this up. Our SecDef was like, we are secure on operational security, and had a journalist in the Signal call. So I'm not convinced that overarching security is necessarily the number one concern of this administration. So the idea they put him in the Air Force One, it may not be secure. I
do understand Trump's frustration, and I would be frustrated too if you're the president of the United States. Air Force One, the existing one's 30 years old. You're spending a fortune trying to keep it updated by building custom parts because nobody flies in planes these old anymore. And then the government goes out there, runs these contracts. Boeing can't deliver on what now is a $5 billion expense for 2 planes, and they're maybe even still 5 years at minimum, possibly 10 years away from delivering this. The Qatars are willing to give you a plane, but now you got to spend hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars retrofitting that. It's going to take 3 years. If I'm president of the United States and I'm sitting here going, how did I find myself in this situation? I have 4 planes, none of which can meet the needs of the President of the United States. Let's go to the phone lines. Mary in Wyoming. Good morning, Mary. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Hey, morning, guys. I have to agree with you regarding the cost and everything. They said that it's going to take 2 years to retrofit this plane. I don't believe they're going to put all the bells and whistles in it. And to address what Bill is saying about how everyone else is going to go after it, hey, you could have a couple of our premium jets accompany that plane as it goes, like they have an ambulance. So I think that is still a good deal for him, because then they're saying the plane, you're saying it started in 1990. They're saying that plane is 42 years old. That's a lot of wear and tear on a plane. It does not make it a safe plane. And that was my issue before. And plus, it's the style. It's Donald Trump's style. Gold plane, gold Trump palace, Margot. I'm just saying it's who Trump is.
I mean, I bet it sounds like, and I haven't been on either of those jets, but perhaps Air Force One with its age is a bit of a downgrade from what Trump's normally used to flying around in with his own personal money and plane.
That's true. And in other words, and I just think that, and when it goes out, it would have to be stripped anyway. In other words, so that is just like Reagan, it had to be stripped to have him be able to have the plane in his library. I mean, so that is not, like Trump is incurring that cost. It has to be anyway. And they do that with a lot of the jets that they, remember a lot of the jets that when they retire them, they give them to veteran groups, etc. They all have to be stripped.
Mary, I appreciate the call. I agree with your perspective on this one. Mary's line will be open, 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. The U.S. formally accepts luxury jet from Qatar for DJT.
Yeah, I like Mary's point that is it necessarily the idea of, we went through the Department of Government Efficiency.
Correct.
Is it efficient to get this plane, do all this retrofitting, and then strip it out?
Very fair question. And that's
the thing
question.
If we were going to have it in perpetuity, if it wasn't going to go to the Trump library, I think you've got more of an argument because the other planes aren't being built. But in a couple of years, in theory, based on how Trump has outlined this, when he's out of office, we're back to square one. It doesn't solve the problem. It does something for Trump, but outside of that, it doesn't solve America's problem with Air Force One. So is this a solution, or is this just a fancy jet that's a gift to a billionaire? And the other question I would have is, when someone gives you a $700 million gift, they expect something in return.
Well, 700 million is a stretch.
I'm sorry, but
some people are saying
200.
200 million.
But
yeah.
But you don't want it back. You're going to want something back. You don't want something in return.
Right.
Yeah. You're going to want something in return.
And I think, keep in mind, though, that part of the equation is that the existing Air Force One is facing high maintenance costs because the parts are no longer widely manufactured. The planes you're flying around on Southwest, for instance, are far newer than what the President of the United States flies around with regards to Air Force One. And so, fair questions, Bill. And my concern is the cost. Because I'm looking at $37 trillion of debt, and the United States has 4 planes that can't meet its needs right now. Not a single one of them. So, the money to Boeing and the lost cost there, the sunk cost, thank God somebody at least negotiated with Boeing right now that if you go over the $3 trillion, or is it 3 trillion or billion? I have to look that up. But if you,
it's billion.
Billion. Yeah. Sorry.
It's okay.
Trillions a lot, but we might as well already be up in the trillions.
Yeah.
But so Boeing entered into a fixed price contract with the U.S. Air Force for a $3.9 billion to deliver 2 Air Force Ones. Okay.
Yeah.
But they are now over budget by $2 billion. So they're now at $5.9 billion. But thank God it's a fixed price contract because Boeing is responsible for the cost overruns. Okay?
Yeah.
So this is a big hit. A $2 billion hit to a company is a big hit. So Boeing's sunk and stuck with these 2 planes. They're delayed. some of this has to do with workforce challenges, supply chain disruptions, and the complexity of building the plane. But you have 2 planes in one corner that cost a lot of money. You have the existing plane that costs a lot of money to update. And you now have this retrofit of a gift that's going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah, all we're doing is we're spending more money. Yeah, this is great.
Mike Johnston spent $100,000 to drop off 4 letters on the 16th Street Mall.
Yeah. That was ridiculous. That was silly. And there was a person that pointed out, and I remember I saw it online, that, I know who it is. It was, yes, and this name will ring for a lot of people that are long time KNUS listeners. Old time news broadcasters still out there doing news. Nia Bender posted this online yesterday that she's like, they spent all this, Mike Johnston, Denver mayor, spent all this money to just go back to the original name. I'd forgotten about that. She just, dropping the mall, etc. 16th Street Mall, now it's 16th Street. She goes, that's what it was before they built the mall. It was just called 16th Street. So she did this nice little breakdown of a timeline as far as they're just going back to what they were doing before. Now, on the Trump plane, how badly, now I know they're talking about other contractors, but I still think that Boeing may be the one to grab this. And it's because when you talked about the fixed costs, because they need to try to recoup some money somewhere. And if they come in and say, hey, we will retrofit this plane with all the stuff that we're doing, etc., they can get a new contract, and now it's new revenue, and they can offset some of that loss. I do think they're going to be players inside of it. It's going to be weird, though, to then get a subcontractor per se that doesn't necessarily isn't native to the plane, that they're the ones that are going to come in and do all the work. That's going to be a whole nother little bag of worms. So this will be interesting.
I understand President Trump's frustration. I don't blame him for taking the plane at all. I mean, if you're stuck between planes being delivered in likely a decade that cost $2 billion at this point, overrun, and the plane you got now is costing money on high maintenance costs and it's 30 years old. Someone gave me a gift. I'd take it too. But as a taxpayer, I just look at this whole situation and I go, we are spending money on 4 airplanes right now, none of which meet our needs entirely. So, welcome to the United States federal government.
Exactly.
All right, we'll get to You Choose the News. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
These are the days. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. This is our portion of the hour where we risk all of our careers with a little You Choose the News.
Yes, like a bunch of maniacs. We play America's favorite fake radio news game show this morning. Hope you caught that reference. Yes, it's time for You Choose the News, America's most popular yet most fake game show on any radio station across the country. Why are we doing this at this hour and wasting valuable airtime? Because those that are in charge have no idea. They don't wake up until 7 o'clock. So this is what happens when Jeff and Bill are left unsupervised. That's why they always take people when we got to IHOP and stuff, because they're afraid of what we'd do if we were left alone. Alrighty, and they're probably right. Okay, now as always, Blake Olson joins us from the news department, and Jeff Hunt is here in the studio. Here we go, gentlemen. Let's take a look at your stories this morning. Headline number 1, the 2-second rule. Headline number 2, get off my lawn. Headline number 3, not Sully or Mike. And headline number 4, back in 2 and 2.
Get off my lawn.
Yeah, get off my lawn. As a child, you probably experienced that anxiety of knocking a baseball, a football, or even a soccer ball into a neighbor's lawn and them giving you crap for trying to come and get it back. Well, did they take you to court? That happened in England recently. A couple in Hampshire has become so exasperated by the seemingly endless strain of soccer balls going into the garden of their $2 million home from a nearby school, they have successfully sued the city council, and they're going to get about $1,000 in remittance. Now, the high court ruled that the kids were repeatedly kicking the footballs over the fence into the garden, and it does constitute a nuisance. However, the judge did reprimand the couple and said, you've sort of lost perspective, and we are not going to prohibit the use of the soccer field next to your house like you wanted. Yes, they wanted the kids to have no more fun. It's basically what it was.
Correct.
Yeah, they were like, no, stop the kids from having fun.
That's right.
Yeah,
and
exercising. Last time I checked, you moved next to the school.
Yes.
Just like the people that move next to the airport and complain about the noise.
You know, we know a way to scare kids with regards to balls flying over fences. You just go to the Sandlot, hire a big bad scary dog.
Exactly. Chopper.
And then all the kids will be scared and tell neighborhood stories, and lo and behold.
And you got to name it Chopper, just as a rule.
I can remember the old lady who used to live next to us. I can see her face right now. What a nightmare, man.
Dude, there was an old guy. There was an old guy halfway down our block, and he was the only one that put up a chain link fence around his front yard. Yeah, that was great.
Wow.
Dude was
this lady burnt our baseball.
No.
I mean, literally, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God, that's awful.
I mean, it was, I would say her
like
name right now.
Like lighter fluid? And
yes. She lit that thing on fire and threw it over the fence. Footballs, baseballs.
Wow.
I mean, this, and never wore makeup, man. This was the ugliest lady I've ever seen.
That type of thing.
Man. She was frightening. We'd have nightmares about her.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, God bless her. I'm sure she was a beautiful
have nightmares about her, but God bless her. All right.
By the way, have you seen those videos of the dad when the golf ball gets hit into his yard and he goes and lies down next to it as if the golf ball hit him, just to mess around with the golf ball?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, now, Blake Olson, your choice, sir. 2-second rule, not Sully or Mike, or back in 2 and 2?
2-second rule.
Yeah, 2-second rule. Apple is playing by the 2-second rule. Russia's highest court system has fined Apple 2 seconds worth of profits. That'll teach them. Back in 2023, Apple was fined $42,000, or what at the time was 2 seconds profit, over spreading false information about the Ukraine conflict. Well, they were taken back to court again. They were found guilty, and a Russian court has now fined them about $131,000. Again, another 2 seconds of profit.
Right.
I'm certain that Apple is really worried about making sure they don't violate your laws when you're finding them for 2 seconds of profit. Yeah, like
2 seconds.
2 seconds.
Wow.
I'm sure they learned their lesson. Yes,
I'm sure they did.
Yeah, just like grounding your kid.
Punishment.
Sit here for 60 seconds. You will learn your lesson. It doesn't care.
Exactly.
Yeah. Alrighty, now Jeff, we got to wrap this thing up. Not Sully or Mike, or back in 2 and 2.
Back in 2 and 2.
Yeah, fans of Chuck Woolery will love that one. Back in 2 and 2, the workday is full of distractions. A new study by Microsoft has shown that 9 to 5 employees are interrupted every 2 minutes during your workday. Yes. Meetings, emails, pings, people walking over going, hey, working hard or hardly working? How's the weather? Everybody coming by here. Your cubicle, yes. Every 2 minutes when you are working, you get interrupted. So that's why you are so unproductive, because all of your coworkers are just bothering you. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's all those meetings and
it's
things.
like the meetings. Yeah.
Exactly. Meetings are awful.
Same
okay.
deal.
That's it. That's the end of You Choose the News. I'm wasting time.
Coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, a wild meeting with the president of South Africa and Donald Trump yesterday. We'll cover it. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Seven a.m. in the Mile High City on this Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Colorado's blue, America's red. It all meets right here on the Jeff and Bill Show, where most importantly, We take your phone calls and invite you to be part of the conversation. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. Now is your time for a morning dose of news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning. It is 47 degrees and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 77 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
On this vote, the yeas are 215, the nays are 214, with one answering present. The bill is passed.
The House has passed DJT's big, beautiful bill. Lawmakers approved the massive spending plan this morning, with all Democrats and 2 Republicans voting against it. Now it heads to the Senate. Speaker Mike Johnson gets it done again.
I'm just going to be very blunt about it. There was a few moments over the last week when it looked like the thing might fall apart, and I went to the little chapel over here and got on my knees and prayed that these guys would have wisdom and stamina and discernment, and that's the secret here, and teamwork. And mutual respect. Everybody has one another, and I think that's what defines the Republican Party. It's a great day to be an American. It's a great day to be a Republican.
Here's Jim Jordan.
Told them last fall, you elect us, we will secure the border. President Trump has done that. We allocate resources in this bill to make sure it stays secure. We told people last fall, you elect us, we will respect moms and dads. We will let you have school choice where you can pick the school where your son or daughter is going to get the best education. And we told people last fall, you elect us, we're going to treat you with the respect you deserve. Able-bodied people in our welfare system will have to work if they're going to get your money. This bill does what we said we were going to do. That's why it's a good day for our country.
And Representative Smith from Missouri.
We're delivering for seniors who worked their whole lives and paid into Social Security and were promised tax relief. We're delivering for the families who, after surviving 4 years of Democrats' historic inflation, struggle to afford a school that meets their needs. We're delivering for the factory worker who needs to buy a car to drop his kids off on the way to work.
All right, so it will be a busy day in D.C. We'll have more interviews and sound bites next hour. 2 staff members of the Israeli embassy have been murdered in cold blood in D.C. A Chicago man is accused of shooting them outside D.C.'s Capitol Jewish Museum. 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez was taken into custody following the horrific shooting last night, yelling this out as he was placed in handcuffs. Free Palestine! Yeah, I wonder if he'll be saying that in a few days when he realizes he'll be in prison for life.
Yeah, and Blake, I have some posts right now of his social media I've captured before. That's all the stuff's being scrubbed. So I used the Wayback Machine, was able to get a little bit of his history. So he was an oral history researcher for the History Makers, the digital repository for the Black experience.
Wow.
Elias Rodriguez is an oral history researcher where he prepares detailed research outlines and biographies of accomplished leaders in the African American community. Born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, he holds a BA degree in English from the University of Illinois at Chicago. Prior to joining the History Makers in 2023, he worked as a content writer for commercial and non-commercial firms in the technology space, both national and regionally based. He enjoys reading and writing fiction, live music, film, and exploring new places. He lives in the Avondale neighborhood of Chicago. Wow. Now, this page has been taken down by the History Makers, but got a screenshot of it and it's posted on X.
Unbelievable. Well, he'll have plenty of time to read now. The rest of his life behind bars. And when you hear this. Free Palestine! Oh, yeah. He's so
I heard
bold
that for 4 days, man.
Yes,
heard that
you
for
did.
4 days in Chicago.
Oh, my goodness, man. You get radicalized.
BA degree in English from the University of Illinois at Chicago. And like I said, Elias Rodriguez is not a name that comes from Gaza, right? It's
Right,
not a traditional Rodriguez from Gaza.
Yeah,
So-
he's been reading and watching a lot of stuff.
This guy, I think, probably got radicalized in college.
Yep. Good luck to him in prison the rest of his life. China says it is gravely concerned by 47's plan to build a missile defense shield. Yeah, I'm sure they need a target. How dare you take it away? Trump announced Tuesday that his Golden Dome missile system will be fully operational in less than 3 years. A spokesperson with China's foreign ministry is encouraging D.C. to halt its development and says it could turn outer space into a battlefield. How do you say duh in Chinese? Oh, man. The man accused of starting the Bucktail fire near Nucla in western Colorado last August. He's pleading guilty to a Class 4 felony. 64-year-old Brent Garber accepted a plea deal to acknowledge guilt for attempt to commit fourth-degree arson in exchange for all other charges to be dropped. Garber, who was living on public land at the time, attempted to cremate his dog when the flames spread out of control and eventually burned more than 7,000 acres. Garber is due back in court for sentencing on July 16th. Goodness. Stock in United Health Group is down after the news broke Wednesday that the company secretly paid nursing homes to cut down on hospital transfers. The practice allegedly saved the United Health Group millions, but put patients' health at risk. United Health denied the allegations. Kim Kardashian is one step closer to becoming an attorney. The 44-year-old reality star held a backyard commencement ceremony in Beverly Hills Thursday after she earned a law degree through a California program that allows people to qualify for the bar under the mentorship of a licensed attorney. It is 45 in Littleton, 44 in, North Glen, and 47 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast. Morning temperatures will be in the mid-40s under a clearing sky. Then skies throughout our Thursday will be sunny. Highs will be in the middle and upper 70s with lows upper 40s Thursday night. Cannot rule out a couple evening thunderstorms Thursday. Shower and thunderstorms, though, will pick up more in coverage by late Friday, continuing Memorial Day weekend. Highs mid-80s and lows lower 50s on Friday. Weather brought to you by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather. Schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection at roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Well, we all know it's tough here in Colorado with the crime and these judges and these weak DAs that allow people out on probation, for instance, race through a residential street at 90 miles an hour, unlicensed, not even supposed to be in this country, plow into a young lady that's driving her car, kill her, and you only get probation. So Colorado's got criminals walking around on the streets. Is your business prepared to be defended against these types of criminals? Well, we got the solution for you. Alarm detection systems. When your business security is on the line, it's not optional. It's essential that you have good security systems. They are the highest level of service and expertise, alarm detection systems, and they combine it all one location. Think about all the time you could be saving to have one source for your cameras, keycard access, fire and intrusion systems. ADS offers expert alarm installation and testing by highly trained technicians, 24/7 professional monitoring, same day or next day service upon request because downtime isn't an option. Dedicated teams for cameras, access control, and fire alarms, and over 300 security professionals working for you. Choosing ADS means your business stays protected and will be ready to open tomorrow. They combine human monitoring with the latest AI camera technology to prevent crime in real time. Trusted by small and large businesses, including many Colorado schools. Their security experts will review your system for free. Go to adsalarm.com to schedule your appointment today. adsalarm.com, alarm detection systems, the first choice of Front Range and Colorado businesses, adsalarm.com. This from Fox News. Trump confronts South African president with video on treatment of white farmers. This was a wild interaction in the Oval Office, right up there with Trump and Zelensky a few months ago. President Donald Trump confronted South African President Cyril Ramaphosa at the White House on Wednesday with a video allegedly showing grave treatment of white farmers. Trump has claimed that white Afrikaners, South African farmers, are being slaughtered and forced off their land. The Afrikaners are descendants of mostly Dutch settlers who first arrived in South Africa in 1652. A portion of the footage aired at the White House showed white crosses lined up alongside the roads. Now, this is very bad. These are burial sites over 1,000 of white farmers. Those cars are lined up to pay love on a Sunday morning. Each of them, those white things you see, is a cross, and there are approximately 1,000 of them. Trump said they're all white farmers, the family of white farmers, and those cars aren't driving. They're stopped there to pay respects to the family members who are killed. Have they told you where that is, Mr. President? I'd like to know where it is, because this I've never seen, said the president of South Africa. I mean, it's in South Africa. That's where it is. We'll need to find out, said the president of South Africa. Earlier, Trump had said, we had a lot of people. I must tell you, Mr. President, we've had a tremendous number of people, especially since they've seen this. Generally, they're white farmers and they're fleeing South Africa. And it's a very sad thing to see. But I hope you have an explanation for that, because I know you don't want that. Some 50 Afrikaners were flown into the United States as refugees last week. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said there's more to come. What was wild about this was at one point they're kind of going back and forth. And originally the conversation starts out quite jovial, and they're talking, and the president of South Africa goes, I wish I had brought you a plane. I wish I had a plane to gift to you. And they're talking about how nice the White House is. And then Donald Trump's referencing that some white golfers had joined the president of South Africa on this trip. And then they start discussing the plight of these Afrikaners, these white farmers that exist there. And it gets kind of complicated from here. So, as you probably know from your history, you remember there was apartheid in South Africa. You remember Nelson Mandela. He was imprisoned. There was legal structures set up to keep black people down by this, by the white regime at that point. And so you had racism, you've had brokenness in the communities, and then Nelson Mandela is this kind of bridge that exists. You ever watch the rugby movie with Matt Damon, kind of gets into a lot of this stuff. So tension in South Africa. Black Africans make up about 80% of South Africa. The other 20% are other nationalities. So it's predominantly black country. Well, since then, you've had the rise of some political parties that have actively called for and chanted for the execution of white farmers, of the Boers. And Donald Trump plays videos of these political leaders in South Africa, calling for the execution of white farmers. Now, this is not the same political party that makes up the president of South Africa. That's important. This is distinguishable, right? It's like Republicans being lumped in with far right fringe or Democrats being lumped in with the far left fringe, right? We know that even in our political system, you end up with fringe elements that don't represent a majority of the party. And that's the argument coming from the South African president, is that what you're seeing in this video that Donald Trump played, which isn't false, the video, the chants, the political rallies calling for the deaths of white farmers, it's not made up. It is true. There is a political party, but the president of South Africa trying to point out, look, Mr. President, this doesn't reflect us. This isn't our party, but it's still a problem in South Africa. Now, I've been to South Africa, did mission work in South Africa, attended the Luzon Christian Missionary Conference in South Africa, so I've been there twice. It's got a real, and I've been to the very poorest parts of South Africa. It has a crime problem. When we stayed there, we had to stay in what I could only describe, Bill, as fortresses with armed security guards, and this was a mission, right? I wasn't staying at a palace or anything like that. To run a basic mission in South Africa, you live behind highly fortified walls with spikes at the top, with armed guards. So They have a crime problem. Is it a race-based crime problem? Not entirely. I think there's elements of it, and you see it in this video of some of these political elements shouting, kill the boer, stomp the boer, and all these people shouting and jumping up and down. Does it represent all of South Africa? Absolutely not. Does it represent current South African president? No, it doesn't. But there is an element there that's pushing this. You have a general crime issue in South Africa. Everywhere you go, you deal with this. So what did I take out of yesterday's meeting? I appreciate Donald Trump raising it. Is it all factually accurate? No. When he points to the crosses, for instance, he says those are burial sites. Those aren't burial sites. It's a protest. And so those crosses reflect white farmers that have been lost. But to his point, you got a lot of people that want to leave South Africa because of what they're facing there. There's elements of racial crimes taking place, motivated in part by some of these political parties that are race-based or racist political parties. And I appreciate Donald Trump raising it. I've read that Donald Trump is raising this issue in part because of what Elon Musk has said and other golfers that he plays golf with that have raised these concerns. And I think he put a lot of pressure on the president of South Africa in a very public way yesterday to address this. So I appreciate the fact he did that. I don't know if you had a chance to watch some of the videos, but do you have thoughts?
Yeah, that bothered me. One, because he obviously submarined him. I mean, this was something, because he had the videos and stuff, this was something that was set up. So this was something that he wanted attention for and then was wrong. That's just awful. That's horrible. I mean, that's Joe Biden being in the Oval Office and talking to people and having his facts wrong or accusing another world leader of something that's not occurring. There's nothing that backs up the claim of white genocide. That's a problem. I saw yesterday on some conservative social media sites lots of celebration. I heard some radio talk show hosts yesterday having celebration that finally someone is talking about this white genocide. Finally, someone's addressing it. That's like celebrating that somebody finally caught Bigfoot. Bigfoot doesn't exist. Not there. That's a problem. And the issue being, this is something that had echoes all around the world. And Donald Trump has shown portions of the planet that the leader of the free world, the president of the United States, doesn't know what he's talking about. That should depend, it doesn't matter about political party. That should worry you at your core. that an international appearance of our president is that he doesn't really know what's going on and he's attacking the leader of another country for something that's not true. That's hugely problematic.
Can you say that it's not entirely true?
No, white genocide is not true there.
You think that there's no targeting of white farmers specifically because of their race in South Africa?
The issue for me, and I know that, and we can talk about definitions of genocide, but for me, there's a threshold as far as it being because of, race, religion, things like that. I have seen no statistics showing that the white residents or white farmers inside of South Africa are being killed at a larger rate than anybody else. In fact, the closest representation in numbers, and unfortunately, South Africa isn't breaking down some of their murders based on race, but they do based on where they happen. And of the murders, if you did the math, 0.2% happened on farms, and a portion of that 0.2% were farm workers that we can assume are more likely to be black than white. They may not be, but even then, it's 0.2%. I submit that if 0.2% of the murders going on in any nation, that does not constitute a genocide of that population. That's it. It's just math.
Yeah, but
that's the problem I have.
But
it's math.
Part of what it seems like you might be ignoring, though, is lots of calls coming from political parties within South Africa to kill the Boer, stop the Boer, which is the white farmer.
I'm not sure about lots of political parties. I think fringe.
I don't know if you watched that video, but that's a pretty big rally. I mean, that's like a stadium. That isn't five guys in a white mask somewhere on a street corner.
But it is fringe. It is a fringe party. It's a party that doesn't necessarily have power and that is a fringe leader. And we had people that were running under the banner of both the Democrats and the GOP in the last elections saying things that run toward as well. I mean, there are all sorts of examples of people that are running candidates under our major two political parties saying things that are either anti-Semitic or anti-immigrant or a whole bunch of things, or even white supremacist talking. You talk about Nick Fuentes. You talk about his representation, his influence.
Democrats were saying that the greatest threat to America right now is white supremacy. So Democrats would look at fringe things in America and go, that's the greatest domestic terrorist threat to the United States, or white supremacists. Meanwhile, you have active political parties with entire stadiums full of people in South Africa actively calling for the killing of people based upon their race, and they're just fringe. They're just they're not a real issue to be dealt with.
Hang on a sec. There's a difference between being fringe and being a real issue to be dealt with. Fringe doesn't say that that you don't have to be dealt with. You're not an issue. Same thing with white supremacy. Fair. I do disagree with the Democrats saying necessarily that white supremacy is the biggest threat facing America. I disagree with them on that. But you can say it's a threat, and I do think it is valid to say that this form of anti-white violence that is celebrated inside of this fringe political party is a problem. But what it doesn't equate to is white genocide, because they can scream and yell. And this is, oh God, do I do this? Do I even do this? Do I do this? Okay, fine. We're going to see if I have to go talk to HR later today. Let's just for the sake of the conversation, if Adolf Hitler would have stopped at the rhetoric and not taken action, it doesn't become a Jewish genocide. It is untoward. It is a threat. It's wrong at the core, but it doesn't rise to the level of genocide because you don't have the level of death. It's awful. I can't believe I just did that. But the example I have is being angry about it and having those claims and chanting that in South Africa is different than killing mass numbers of white people, and we don't see that, especially farmers. We don't see that level. So you can't say white genocide. It's a wrong term.
Well, I think, yes, it's probably correct that an actual genocide is not taking place, okay? And that is hyperbolic language. What Donald Trump did yesterday in the White House was raise on a national platform an actual problem that is taking place, okay? And you saw the pictures of the crosses. You saw the headlines in the media. You saw the political leaders of South Africa. Maybe not the president, but those that are powerful enough to bring in stadiums full of people chanting, death to white farmers, death to the Boer, right? So did Donald Trump get all of his facts right? Was that a burial site? No. Does this rise to the international definition of a genocide? Probably not. But he raised this issue, brought focus on it, put pressure on the president of South Africa, and I hope, for the sake of humanity, the president of South Africa goes back and puts stronger pressure on some of these political fringe groups to stop calling for the death of anybody based upon their race. White, black, doesn't matter. But in this case, where they're calling for the chanting and the death of white farmers, that should be condemned. That should be pushed out of the political mainstream. And I appreciate the fact that he was able to raise this issue, and I think he made some meaningful changes for the people of South Africa. I'm glad he did it. Feel free to join the phone conversation, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Again, that number, 720-819-5115. Let's talk L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. 78 today, 85 tomorrow. It is getting hot. It's going to bounce back down to the 67 on Sunday. But you got to have that AC going, and we're about to get into the really hot months. Guys, our AC broke at our house. The line got frozen, and our AC, I think, was like 15 years old or something like that, original builder grade. And so we went out and did the research, talked to a number of different companies. Folks, the people we chose were L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. They came to our house, installed it one day, no stress, personal service from start to finish, followed up to make sure everything was perfect. Now our home is perfectly comfortable no matter what the weather. With L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, we got peace of mind. Here's some of their deals right now. Free programmable thermostat and carbon monoxide detector with new furnace or air conditioner installation. No emergency charges, a $0 trip fee, price match value guarantee on equipment, free estimates, licensed and insured, and a 5-year labor warranty. Everything looks great. Our family couldn't be happier. So if you're looking for fast, honest, reliable service, I highly recommend L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. 720-851-1691 is their phone number. 720-851-1691. Online at bestdenverhvac.com. bestdenverhvac.com. I'm sure glad we called him. That number again, 720-851-1691. We'll get to phone calls, lots of text messages coming in on this one.
Yeah, there are lots of text messages and calls. I want to throw this on the table just before we go to break, because I'd love to have text messages and even callers react to it. Someone off air wanted to ask the question, and I said I would do it so they didn't have to go on the air, and I'll take the heat for it. But their basic question is, would we call perhaps the treatment of Qatar, of their workers that they use there, as slavery and or genocide, but we're accepting a plane from them? Would we call, in some definitions, could we call the Israeli treatment of the Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank as a genocide? Some say that it is, and it would rise to larger levels of killing than in South Africa, according to the caller. So does that qualify? If we're having the white genocide in South Africa, does it then, by definition, mean it's a genocide inside of Palestine? And I would love to hear what people think about that.
Yeah, feel free to join the conversation. I think part of the equation when you look at that is you have to look at the political motivation, right? So if Israel was leading political rallies saying, kill all the Gazans, kill all the Gazans, then you might have to consider it. I don't see that happening in Israel. What you see in Israel is a military response to a direct terroristic threat and action that took place against them on October 7th. With South Africa, though, you do have political parties, stadiums full of people calling for the death of white farmers. Does that change the equation here? Give us a call. A lot to discuss, and I saw this pointed out. It's a fair critique. Donald Trump went to Qatar and Saudi Arabia and said, I'm not going to tell these leaders what to do with their people. For instance, in Saudi Arabia, they don't allow churches.
Nope.
South Africa, he's putting some pressure on them. Do you see a distinction and a difference there?
In Saudi Arabia, you can take journalists and chop them up into pieces, if you want to. So, yes, got a lot more freedom. Just saying. All right, we've got a lot to talk about, and the phone lines are open. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show. This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Donald Trump lecturing the South African president in televised Oval Office confrontation. The president showed a video and leafed through printouts that he claimed showed widespread persecution of white South Africans. Country's president tried to provide a rebuttal to that. It was right up there with the meeting with Zelensky. Got very interesting yesterday. So what's happening to white Africans? That's what we've been discussing. I've been to South Africa twice, one with an aid organization that fed starving kids in Africa and provided like high nutrient paste, basically, when a kid goes through profound malnutrition, you can't just hand them like a steak and be like, hey, get better. You have to nurse them back. And so these aid organizations have this very high nutrient-rich, basically like a paste, a peanut butter-based paste that kind of helps bring them back. And I was working with that organization. And then also a mission organization. So I've been to South Africa twice. They deal with a lot of crime there. And part of the challenge is you actually have political parties calling for the deaths of white Afrikaners. That history of apartheid, Nelson Mandela, still there, and there's an effort to bring about retribution. And there's a law that's been passed that's very vague that essentially allows the government to reclaim land. It's like eminent domain, but without much requirements. And white Afrikaners are making the argument that black leaders are just seizing their land and that there's death and murder taking place targeting white farmers. Donald Trump raising this issue, does it qualify in my mind to like an international definition of genocide? Probably not. Did the white crosses represent burial sites? No, it was a protest. But look, the president, by raising this, could probably bring about some social change in South Africa. I'm glad he did it. Let's go to the phone lines. Joshua, El Paso. Good morning, Joshua. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Morning, gentlemen. I appreciate your time. I work with two South Africans, both females. One's white, one's black. And we were in a training and getting to know each other, a group, and the white South African lady was sharing some of the turmoil and why her and her husband moved out. And her family's owned farms. And they were having issues because she lost a couple of family members, and she was sharing like what was happening. And this started a couple of years ago, where they were pulling families out, white farmers, and burning them alive, put them in tires, things like that, pouring gasoline, and just killing the whole family and saying, "This is our land." And so I heard about it, rumors or whatever, but we talked about it with the black South African, and she was very uncomfortable discussing it, but she did say yes, it was happening. And I think statistically, I understand that thought process, but this isn't like Chicago. Reports of accurate, death numbers weren't coming out of China on how many Muslims were getting killed and targeted, or Taliban. I mean, during their takeover, and still, there's no stats to back it up because, I mean, Hitler didn't put out stats how many Jews he was killing and whatnot. So it is happening. I mean, this is, secondhand, obviously, but from two sides, race-based South Africans that confirm that this is happening to farmers, especially in the more rural farmlands. So, I agree with you, too, that Middle Eastern countries, Muslim countries, still have slaves. It shouldn't be just one. We should address all of it. But I think also that Trump's getting hammered by Democrats and media saying, he's full of it, over 60 white South Africans. Even though we brought 60,000 refugees last year, the media and everybody's upset about 60 white South Africans is insane. So I think this was also a political move strategically of, saying, calling out the hypocrisy of media and Dems of are you upset about the white South Africans, or what are you upset with? It's only 60 people.
Yeah, see,
So-
Joshua, I'm not upset at all about the refugees where I draw
No, I'm
a
not
line.
saying that you are,
Yeah,
sir.
no, but I
just
appreciate
saying,
that.
you know.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's where I sit. I'm not at all, and I'm happy to welcome them here. The issue that I've got is the definition of this as a white genocide. I just don't see this. I see this as crime out of control, and a lot of the reports that I've read just in the last 18 hours talk about motivations for these crimes more times than not is property theft, theft of land. It's not necessarily that the farmers are targeted because of the color of their skin, but they're targeted because they are remote and they're easy targets because of lack of policing and law enforcement. And so it's easier, if it takes longer for the police to get there, that's a softer target than if the police are going to be there quicker. And so that's kind of the issue. Is all the
Most
stuff
of
that I've
the
seen.
culturally, I understand that, but culturally, and this is coming from the two ladies, is most of the farmlands, especially the larger ones, are white owned. I mean, that's just the way it is, and it's black South Africans targeting white, and yes, I mean it could be the narrative could be pushed that it's rural and all this stuff, but it's black South African groups going to white farmers and saying this is our land, as black Africans, South Africans, and either they push them out or they murder the whole family.
And Joshua, the sense
so
I get
it is a problem.
too is that Donald Trump has taken this up because he's hearing from white golfers that come from South Africa that this is a concern,
And
an
Elon.
issue. And
Elon Musk is big into
and
this.
Elon Musk has brought this up as well.
Now,
so.
the allegation is he altered the allegation is that someone at Twitter altered Grok recently to throw white genocide and the Kill de Boers into answers. There's a whole thread online where you can see people asking Grok a number of questions, and Grok randomly throws in white genocide, South Africa, and Kill de Boers into totally unrelated questions. Things like, how do I make creme brulee? And Grok would return an answer on white genocide. Just saying.
I don't know. I haven't seen any evidence.
I know, it's just
of
a
that.
weird one.
But
Yeah. So
Joshua, I
Elon's part of
appreciate
it
the
too.
call.
Elon's
bottom line,
neck deep in
the
this.
result of it, though, is that this has now been brought to an international focus. You have refugees coming. You have political parties in South Africa calling for the death of white people. And the president now of South Africa, I think, is going to return home, put pressure, try to address this. Overall, I think that's a positive. All right, want to talk to you all about advanced hair restoration. For many of us, it's happening. Your hair's thinning, your crown's disappearing. Maybe hair loss has you feeling your identity's lost altogether. Well, I got good news for you. It's an incredible yet simple one-day treatment that starts growing your own natural hair the very next day, and it's guaranteed to grow for life. It's the Advanced FUE from Advanced Hair, and we've all seen the pills and lotions that come with monthly subscriptions. They help retain what you have, but what if what you want is your own natural hair permanently in specific areas? From an Advanced Hair state-of-the-art facilities to world-class Dr. Tanya Pauls, it's not maybe your hair will regrow. It's guaranteed that your new hair will grow. You decide how much, how thick, and where. It's why Advanced Hair is the winner of Westward's Best of Denver. For your free consultation, $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Call 720-459-HAIR. 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. Advancedhair.com. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Donald Trump yesterday lecturing South African president in a televised Oval Office confrontation, even brought down the lights and had a video showing political leaders, now not the political party that the president of South Africa is elected from, but another political party in South Africa leading chants, kill the Boer, stop the Boer, which is, Boer is South African term for a white farmer, typically Dutch, and Donald Trump calling for this to be addressed by the South African president. Let's go to the phone lines. Tony Littleton. Good morning, Tony. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. Well, you're right about one thing, and that is the Oval Office meeting was viewed by hundreds of millions and maybe billions of people by the time, the BBC and so forth spreads this around the world. And yesterday was another leader being sucker punched in the Oval Office over something that is not true, just like Zelensky didn't start the war.
White farmers are being killed by black?
The president of South Africa tried to set the record straight. He learned from watching Zelensky, don't get combative. But the facts are, this has been looked at by the UN. This has probably been looked at by the World Court. There are statistics out there showing that they have a crime problem. 26,000 murders last year. 44 of them were people from the farming community. 8 of them were farmers. And the government tries to prosecute the murders of these farmers. They are indeed, this is a problem for them. They have this ingrained in their history now because white people own all the land because of apartheid, and yet it's 80% black. And they know this is a problem. They've got to sort it out, and they don't have an answer. They are trying to reclaim some land to be resold, if you will, or reissued. They don't have an answer. It's tough. But there's no genocide going on, and that's a fact. And you can't call eight farmers a genocide.
Tony, but that's just, I don't know that stat. That might be just last year. It might be just this year. But you didn't give me a stat for the last 10, 15 years. You have political parties, and he showed videos of this, Tony, of them calling for the death of white people.
Yes,
and a stadium full of people. This wasn't like a small rally of 5 people in a corner.
But they don't have leadership. We have a crazy, that would be like mixing Republicans with MAGA. They're not one and the same. So you can't assign them all the same charge. Yes, there are people who feel that way, but the people who are in control still are not allowing those people to just run roughshod over farmers. The 3 principal sources of this story: Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, and David Duke. Those are the 3 people
Tony,
who are driving this story.
You had 50 refugees that just got on an airplane that flew here from this country because
and
Elon Musk and David
you had
Duke.
the richest man in South Africa come here along with the golfer, can't think of his name, to say there is no genocide here. 2 white guys, the richest white man and the most famous golfer, come here within that party. They didn't show this part of it, saying there is no genocide going on. We have a problem. We have a crime problem that we're fighting, but we have no genocide.
You're going to jump on Donald Trump and go, you haven't met the definition of genocide. Why don't you respect what he was able to do, which was to elevate this issue, to hopefully bring some peace to South Africa and maybe improve the lives of people there? What's wrong with that?
I doubt highly that what he contributed yesterday made a big difference in what's going on in South Africa.
Why not, Tony? You just told me the millions of people watched
should have been held. You know what? That's for you to see on TV. He does that for you. If he were acting like any other president, he'd have a closed door meeting with the leader, and then they maybe come out and talk afterwards and give a press conference and talk about some of the issues
that would make
they
things better in
about.
South Africa? You think a closed door meeting would make things better in South Africa.
I'm saying the President of the United States does not need to, he didn't need to do what he did to Zelensky. I mean, if you think that the billions of people around the world looked at what happened to Zelensky or what happened to yesterday to the leader from South Africa, and I wish I had it, Bukhazi, I think is his name. If you think that he's admired around the world for those two attacks on things that aren't true,
no, I don't think
that's for
Donald
you.
Trump
That's
cares
not for
about
them.
being
That's
admired.
not for South
Tony,
Africans.
I think
That's
what
for
Donald
you.
Trump is doing is trying to fix things that are broken, and he understands the power of the bully pulpit. He understands the power of the media. And to your point, Tony, millions of people saw this yesterday. Millions of people are now looking at South Africa.
And he embarrassed himself and our country.
No. The president of South Africa has a fire under his butt right now to go back to South Africa and try to change things. Because the whole world's paying attention right now.
He was dealing with the problem before he ever got here. He's got a problem that he's trying to wrestle with before he ever got here. The last thing he needed was to have Trump attack him for something that's not true. There is no genocide. If you're dismissing 50,000 Gazans and saying that's what the world court has called.
Trump showed videos, headlines, and you have 50 refugees that just got on an airplane and fled this. Yeah, is it as big as some other genocides that have taken place? No, but Donald Trump properly raised the issue, brought attention to it. I hope it brings about change. I don't think anybody should ever be killed because of their race. Tony, I appreciate it. We're up against the break. Jeff Crank joining us next hour to talk about the big, beautiful bill. He was up late last night. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
10 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. Thank you to all the phone calls that came in on that last issue. We're going to pivot here to Trump's big new bill. Joining us here in just a few minutes is going to be Representative Jeff Crank. He is fresh off of a late night in this bill, barely passing the House by a single vote. We'll get the details on this as it heads over to the U.S. Senate. Now it's time for your morning dose of news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning, Thursday, 50 degrees and sunny in Denver, expecting a high of 77 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez from Chicago has been accused of killing, more like murdering in cold blood, 2 members of the Israeli embassy outside D.C.'s Capitol Jewish Museum. Police say Rodriguez was taken into custody following last night's horrific shooting, and this is what he shouted.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
Yeah, good luck with all that in prison the rest of your life, animal.
On this vote, the yeas are 215, the nays are 214, with 1 answering present. The bill is passed.
Speaker Mike Johnson, a couple of hours ago, the big, beautiful bill has passed the House 215 to 214.
I'm just going to be very blunt about it. There was a few moments over the last week when it looked like the thing might fall apart, and I went to the little chapel over here and got on my knees and prayed that these guys would have wisdom and stamina and discernment. And that's the secret here, and teamwork, and mutual respect. Everybody has one another. And I think that's what defines the Republican Party. It's a great day to be an American. It's a great day to be a Republican.
Here's Jim Jordan.
Told them last fall, you elect us, we will secure the border. President Trump has done that. We allocate resources in this bill to make sure it stays secure. We told people last fall, you elect us, we will respect moms and dads. We will let you have school choice where you can pick the school where your son or daughter is going to get the best education. And we told people last fall, you elect us, we're going to treat you with the respect you deserve. Able-bodied people in our welfare system will have to work if they're going to get your money. This bill does what we said we were going to do. That's why it's a good day for our country.
Expecting to hear from DJT soon. Officials say a small plane crashed into a military housing neighborhood in San Diego. San Diego Fire Rescue Division Chief Dan Eddy said the plane struck around 15 homes in the Murphy Canyon neighborhood, causing multiple houses and vehicles to catch fire. Eddy didn't say if there were any deaths or injuries. Here's the latest lefty communist propaganda in the drive-by media. Here we go. They all got the memo.
The dramatic scene in the Oval Office today, the tense confrontation, President Trump ambushing the president of South Africa.
Next, another Oval Office meltdown, President Trump ambushing the president of South Africa.
President Trump is being accused of conducting something of a diplomatic ambush of South Africa's president in the Oval Office.
To be with you, I'm Katie Tur. President Trump orchestrated another Oval Office ambush today.
Today, Donald Trump meeting with the president of South Africa and attempting to ambush and...
The only ones being ambushed are the farmers in South Africa.
Seriously.
The president of South Africa had a great breakfast, lunch. He was smiling, having a good time the majority of the meeting. He knows what's happening. He absolutely knows what's happening. Heads are being lopped off. People are being murdered. And that's what's happening. And there's no justice. I've been hearing about this for 15
and
years
then you get
on the
groups
golf
like
course.
the Episcopalians who have stopped their refugee partnership with the United States because the new people coming in are white. Like
everybody knows
come
it.
on, guys. Like,
what's the? I can't even remember her name. I should have looked it up, but she did a great job on this a couple years ago. The documentary. I think it's 2 hours long. I watched it. It's horrific. And
if you had stadiums full of people chanting "Death to Black people,"
exactly,
the media would be covering it. But because it's
Absolutely.
white people, it doesn't fit the narrative of oppressor versus oppressed and all that stuff, and it's just.
I mean, culturally, it is. It's a totally different place. I get it, but the line is drawn at murder. I mean, that's it, and that's what's happening there. And apartheid is horrible, no doubt. But this is genocide is worse. A group of lawyers from the University of Denver may sue a state agency over the possible use of elephants at the Colorado Renaissance Festival. Chris Caraway, an attorney with the animal activist Defense Project, says it would be a violation of state law.
Trunks and Humps has been flagrantly violating this law ever since then, and Colorado Parks and Wildlife refuses to do anything about that.
The animal
Sorry, did he say trunks and hunks?
Yeah, it's called Trunks and Humps.
Humps, trunks and humps.
Trunks and Humps.
I thought it was guys in Speedos riding elephants.
I guess it could be.
Trunks and humps.
The project at the Stern College of Law.
Jared Poles will love it.
Yeah,
if you
absolutely.
You want to bridge the animal issue with that? Look, it's June. It's the trunks and hunks.
Yeah.
Here they come. Jared Poles loves it.
Let's go. Well, they sent a letter to the Colorado Parks and Wildlife on Tuesday. It warns of the potential lawsuit if CPW grants a permit to allow elephant performances at the festival through the exhibitor company Trunks and Humps.
Just is the worst.
Yeah, they are, man.
I mean,
hey, you know what? I love your post. Red and blue meets blue state, and you're red and Billy kind of blue. But so I think I just thought about this. I think we need to call the show another name for it. I mean, just like a side name. Call it Purple Rain. So you guys play Purple Rain when you and Billy get going.
There you go.
We
That
could
is
drop
good.
that. I mean, you got the red and blue going, and this is the Purple Rain show, the Jeff and Billy show. All right, radar outages and air traffic controller shortages causing flights to be reduced again in Newark ahead of Memorial Day weekend. The FAA says it's reducing the number of flights in Newark by about 25% through mid-June. First-time jobless claims dropped slightly in the week ending May 17th, according to the Labor Department numbers out today. Some 227,000 people filed claims. Pacers come back against the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals in Game 1 last night. Incredible shot. Looked like a three-pointer. It was a two-pointer to tie it, sends it to overtime. Pacers advance as they head into Game 2. 47 in Lakewood, 49 in Aurora, 50 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue on the Purple Rain Show. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast. Morning temperatures will be in the mid-40s under a clearing sky. Then skies throughout our Thursday will be sunny. Highs will be in the middle and upper 70s with lows upper 40s Thursday night. Cannot rule out a couple evening thunderstorms Thursday. Shower and thunderstorms, though, will pick up more in coverage by late Friday, continuing Memorial Day weekend. Highs mid-80s and lows lower 50s on Friday. Weather brought to you by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather. Schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection at roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
We're expected to be joined here by Jeff Crank, representative from the 5th District of Colorado, down in Colorado Springs, any minute. In the meantime, I want to tell you about our friends over at the Black Eyed Pea, because what's today, Bill? Thursday?
Yes,
And
it is. All
today's
day today.
chicken and dumplings
Ooh.
at the Black Eyed Pea. Love
That's
this
wonderful.
restaurant. Quality food for about the same price as what you pay for fast food these days. So why go get that crummy processed stuff when you could go get good, healthy, locally sourced food from the Black Eyed Pea? It's locally owned and operated by Steve and Michelle. I absolutely love this restaurant. My entire family does. It's one of those great restaurants that does all three generations, right? It hits them all. Grandparents love it. We love it. Kids will eat it. Especially my athlete kids will dive into the meatloaf or the chicken pot pie and eat all of it. It's home-style cooking at its best. 8 locations all along the I-25 corridor, all the way down in Colorado Springs, all the way up to building a new one in Fort Collins. Bottom line, you want to take the family to eat at the Black Eyed Pea. Everything's made from scratch. Here are their daily features. Monday is chicken fried Monday. Tuesday, beef stroganoff. Wednesday, deep dish chicken pot pie. Today, Thursday, chicken and dumplings. Friday, that's fried cod fillet. Saturday is shrimp scampi. And Sunday is chicken marsala. Check out their website, blackeyedpeacolorado.com. They also do catering. If you've got a dinner party, rehearsal dinner, wedding reception, or company event, make it a success with Black Eyed Pea Catering. And no matter what the occasion, Black Eyed Pea gift cards are always great for your special someone, birthday favors, holiday presents. They have you covered. I love everything about this restaurant. I know you will as well. Support local like I do and keep it in Colorado. Visit the Black Eyed Pea near you. All right, so when Jeff Crank joins us in just a second, here's what Rep. Brittany Pedersen is saying about the big, beautiful bill that passed by 1 vote. Brace yourself, Bill.
Yes.
This bill means kids will go hungry. Thousands of people will die without access to health care. And the progress we've made in fighting the opioid crisis will be erased.
Now, I would disagree
Hospitals,
with
hold on, it continues.
Oh, no. Okay.
Hospitals and nursing homes will shudder, and the healthcare costs for all of us will skyrocket, all to give the wealthiest people in history more tax giveaways on the backs of the rest of us. Thousands of people are going to die.
Yeah, I disagree with that one. I mean, medical costs. I mean, a lot of that I disagree with, but medical costs could expand and explode simply because those individuals, while they may not be able to get medical coverage, if they get into a serious issue, we'll pay for it. Our tax dollars will, because they'll show up at a hospital, and then we pay for it through our tax dollars. So we will pay for it in the most inefficient and the most expensive way. So she does have a point. I disagree about the idea that, because we don't let someone die on the streets for lack of medical care. Now, could it be lack of medication, etc.? There could be something with that. However, and again, this is how we do it, is if you can't get access to that medication, you start having adverse effects, you show up at the emergency room, and then we treat you in the most expensive possible way and give you the most expensive cost for that drug. Yay, winning. So again, she has a point there. The rest of it, I think, is a lot of hyperbole. I think she spent a lot of time there.
Sky is falling. Well, we're going to ask our friend Jeff Crank about this in just a second. But I want to tell you about our friends at Mountain High Appliance. Memorial Day savings are heating up. And it's the perfect time to upgrade your kitchen and finally start that remodel you've been dreaming about right now at Mountain High Appliance. Listen to this. Save up to $3,800 on stunning cafe appliances, such as customizable hardware and bold show-stopping finishes. Take advantage of these limited time offers. When you think appliances, think locally owned Mountain High Appliance. $3,800 on stunning cafe appliances with customizable hardware and bold show-stopping finishes. That is a great deal. Check them out at Mountain High Appliances. All right, Jeff Crank coming up here in just a moment. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, the House Republicans got it done. The big, beautiful bill passing by one single vote early this morning. House Democrats, though, concerned. Rep. Brittany Patterson saying the bill means kids will go hungry. Thousands of people will die without access to health care, and the progress we've made fighting the opioid crisis will be erased. Hospitals and nursing homes will shutter, and the health care costs for all of us will skyrocket. To give us some perspective on what's actually in the bill, because he voted for it, he read it, he researched it, Representative Jeff Crank. Good morning, Representative. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Bill. How are you guys?
Oh, we're doing great, and I imagine you've had quite a night. So thank you so much for taking time to join us, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. It was quite a deal. I'll tell you. It's kind of the first big vote I've been down on the floor for, other than the speaker and things, but nothing quite this big. And I was thinking as we were going through it, I don't know how long I'll be in Congress. I guess that's determined by the Lord and my constituents, right? But I don't know if I'll have a bigger vote that I'll ever cast than the one we cast today.
That's a great perspective to have. So, look, I'm looking at folks on our side, Thomas Massey and others, going, the debt's too big. Let's start there. As a conservative, you look at the big, beautiful bill. Did it deliver everything you wanted? Did we have to compromise on some stuff? Tell us about it specifically as it relates to debt.
Yeah, well, of course not. I mean, I would have preferred it to be much less spending. I would have liked to see us cut a lot more government. But, I don't get to decide just by myself. I got elected to a job where I've got to work and get 217 of my colleagues to go along with whatever idea I have. And, that's the problem with folks like Tom Massey, right? They just, it's easy to go and vote no, and then send out fundraising letters and tell everybody that, you're more conservative than your colleagues. But, at the end of the day, are you really moving the needle? I had to look at this bill. It's not perfect. There's lots in it that there's some things, I don't really like. Mostly the things I don't like are that we didn't go far enough in some of the areas. But at the end of the day, you have to look at a bill and say, if I vote no, I'm voting for the current status quo. And is that better than if I vote yes and the bill passes? And the answer here was unequivocally, we're in a much better spot if this bill passes than if it didn't. And so to me, at the end of the day, it was a pretty easy vote to do. Look, I gave a speech last night and I said, what are my colleagues on the other side? What are they voting for? They're voting for a tax increase, a $4.5 trillion tax increase, because they're voting against this bill. They're voting, for people to still be able to, as illegal immigrants, to frankly steal money from the Medicaid, other Medicaid recipients. That's what they're voting for. And what did they vote against? They voted against $150 billion for national defense. They voted against a base housing allowance increase for our military. That was in the bill. So, you have to look at these things. And again, not a perfect bill, but one that I was proud to support.
That voice you're hearing is Representative Jeff Crank. He represents Congressional District 5 here in Colorado. It's the Colorado Springs area. Now, it seems like a lot of the critique coming from Democrats is focused on Medicaid. Representative Brittany Patterson saying that kids are going to go hungry and thousands of people will die without access to health care. Talk to us about what this bill actually does regarding Medicaid.
Yeah. Well, and here's the kicker. They're also saying that it does the same thing to Medicaid and Social Security. I mean, they've been saying that, and it's just flat out a lie. On Medicaid and Social Security, on Medicare and Social Security, we didn't do anything to them. They are untouched. But on Medicaid, we did some simple reforms, common sense reforms that, frankly, I think the American people widely support. In the state of Colorado, as an example, you can be illegally here in the United States, and for up to 90 days, you can get Medicaid benefits without showing proof of citizenship. Why would we not want to close that loophole? I mean, of course we would want to. There's places where they found Medicaid recipients who are registered for Medicaid in more than one state. Some people up to 3 or 4 states where maybe they moved, or maybe it's fraud. We don't know. But the federal government is paying the state of Texas and the state of Colorado and the state of Florida and the state of Iowa for one person. What American would be against cleaning that up and fixing that? And then, finally, work requirements. We are putting work requirements on people who are under, I think the age is 63, 62 and a half. But, for people who are over that age, there's no work requirement. But for able-bodied people, not disabled folks, but for able-bodied people under that age, that is a requirement. If we're giving you health care as a government, shouldn't that be a requirement that we try and get you to work if you're able-bodied? And these are common sense reforms. They're not taking anybody's Medicaid away. It's being responsible and trying to get people to better their lives, get employed, and get people who are able-bodied and can work off the public dole.
Now, that's Representative Jeff Crank from Congressional District 5 joining Jeff and Bill live. Roughly, on Medicaid recipients right now, what percentage are already employed? Do we know? I mean, I've seen some figures, but what are your figures telling you?
Well, I don't know the total number there, or I guess. I think I've heard around, there's around 30% of people are not employed. Right, so there's a big number. It's a very big 30%. Number.
Yeah, right around there.
Yeah.
But is that a significant number? And what I'm asking, and the reason I'm asking about that is, I understand the premise of if you're receiving Medicaid, we want you to be employed. But if the vast majority of those that are on Medicaid are already employed, is this going to impact the number in the way that we need? It seems like we're tweaking something small. I'm not against tweaking something small. What I'm worried is the idea of claiming savings when functionally 30% of Medicaid recipients aren't employed. I'm not certain that requirement gets us to the finish line that I think that you want and others want. Your thoughts?
Well, but here's the thing. I mean, Bill, I think that, the CBO scored it that way. And in fact, when we started down this road, we've all talked, I think, as Republicans, we talked about how in the past, CBO didn't score a lot of these reforms in the way that we thought they should be scored. Well, CBO, who's in the past been very conservative on some of the savings of some of these reforms, they scored it saying that we're going to do that. So that's a supposed independent budget office of Congress. But again, you talked about it. Okay, so you get the 30% who are unemployed, and they either get off and they get onto private health insurance, which is good for them, and it's good for the Medicaid system as well. You've got these other reforms, like I mentioned, getting rid of the waste in it, where you've got people in different states, the same person getting, the state getting paid for that same person. There's also other savings that they did in the bill, taking kind of middlemen out of the Medicaid system, so that we're delivering to the provider, and we're not paying middlemen in the Medicaid system. So there's a lot of reforms there. And again, the CBO came up with the score on Medicaid, and that's what they think it's going to be.
That's Representative Jeff Crank, Congressional District 5 here in Colorado, representing Colorado Springs. Some also big wins for pro-life Americans that don't want to see money going to Planned Parenthood. The ACLU saying that this bill will block Medicaid patients from seeking care at Planned Parenthood health centers and, quote, undermines reproductive freedom by placing a ban on coverage for abortion care in the private health insurance marketplace. Bottom line, it seems like it's some cutting of funding to Planned Parenthood, which is a good thing. Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, it is a good thing. I think, most Americans don't want, abortion. I get it. It's a deeply personal thing. I happen to be pro-life. I know there's people who disagree with me on that issue, but public funding or taxpayer dollars going for the funding of abortion is something that I think most Americans don't want to see. That even if they believe in abortion, there is the idea of publicly funding it, I think, is a problem for folks. So to see that, I was very excited to see that put in the bill as someone who is pro-life. And let me talk quickly about guns. I mean, I'm very excited about what we were able to do at the last minute. We got, because we got to work with the parliamentarian on this reconciliation stuff to make sure stuff will survive in the Senate. That's what this whole reconciliation process is for, is to make sure that it survives the Senate. But we were able to do the suppressors, which normally has been a $300 tax for any citizen who wants to purchase a suppressor, and a registration. And so we were able to eliminate both the tax in this bill, the $300 tax, and the paperwork. And we were able to get that sort of, get a ruling from the Senate parliamentarian on language for that will pass the Byrd rule, it seems, and get that in the bill. So there's lots of good things. I think there's good things for families, and there's good things for Second Amendment advocates as well.
That's Representative Jeff Crank, Colorado Springs. Representative, let's talk tax breaks. The left getting very upset about the wealthiest people in history now have more tax giveaways all on the backs of the rest of us. What's your response to Representative Brittany Pedersen on the tax issue?
Well, it's just not true. If you look at the rates, the tax cuts of Donald Trump were extended. The rates for the wealthiest Americans are the exact same under this bill as they currently are. So there's no tax break for the wealthy. Some of them are upset about is that Donald Trump has effectively stolen the working man moniker from the Democrats. I mean, in this bill, they made a deduction for auto loans. Auto loans are now going to be deductible for people when they take out an auto loan. Do rich people tend to borrow money to go buy a car? No, that's working people that do that. So, there's lots in there. Overtime, taxes on tips, all these things. These are not things that are there for, the wealthiest Americans. But there are some great things in the tax bill that are great for small business, and I think what's gonna happen, Jeff, is when this thing passes the Senate, and it's obvious to the American people that it's going to pass that it passed the House and it's going to pass the Senate. I think the next day the economy is going to roar. You're going to see the stock market take off. They want certainty in taxes. Businesses want that, and I think you're going to see a real economic benefit to this bill passing once we get it through the Senate as well.
That's Representative Jeff Crank. Now, Representative, we're getting text messages here, people wondering, did Democrats vote in support of this at all, or was it purely a partisan vote on it? Can you give us some insight on that?
Yeah, not one Democrat voted for it. We knew that going in, and we had a couple of Republicans who voted against it, two Republicans who voted against it, and then two who voted who didn't show up, and one who voted present. So one Republican who voted present, two Republicans who didn't show up, and two who voted against it. But then we were able to pass it with all of the other Republicans voting in favor and no Democrats voting for it.
That's Jeff Crank, congressional representative for CD5 here in Colorado, joining Jeff and Bill. The big, beautiful bill passed this morning. We've got him first. We really appreciate this time, sir. I want to give voice to someone that called off air, and as you are running through the idea of the no tax on tips, which I think is fantastic, their question was, what happened to the no tax on Social Security benefits? I believe there's a portion of that in this bill, but it's not what was promised. Can you tell us, one, based on your understanding of it, what's in the bill and why we didn't get the full no tax on Social Security?
Yeah, so there is a credit for older Americans who are on Social Security benefits. There's a credit. I can't remember the exact amount, but it's I think $4,500 or something like that of the benefits are tax free essentially. So there's no tax on the first X amount of Social Security benefits. I think it's $4,500, but The reason we couldn't get there is just the price tag, right? We're balancing it out. As I talked about, CBO looks at everything and they score it. And in the budget resolution that we passed, we said you can only do $4.5 billion on the tax side, and so we couldn't go beyond that because we had to stay within the budget resolution that the House and Senate passed. So, if we would have tried to do Social Security fully deductible, we would have had to cut back on, capital gains tax or estate tax, or, some of these other taxes, the interest deductibility on auto loans, all those things. It's just kind of a balancing act, and the Ways and Means Committee, I think, did a pretty good job of it. Obviously, we would have loved to see it fully tax-free on Social Security benefits, but they couldn't fit it in under the scope that the CBO had scored.
That's Representative Jeff Crank, Congressional District 5, the Colorado Springs area. Representative, I know we only got a few more minutes with you. Got a very busy day following this vote. Now, the president was up on Capitol Hill yesterday. Can you tell us what that meeting was like?
It was the wildest. It was the wildest meeting I think I've been to in a long time. He was on the top of his game. It was the member of Congress from Arizona who was sitting next to me looked at me before it started and goes, "How long do you think he'll talk? 30 minutes?" I said, "Oh, no, it'll be longer than that." I think he went about an hour and a half. He talked about an hour and a half. A lot of it was, to be honest with you, was his comedy routine. I mean, there were times that I was wiping some tears out of my eyes because he truly was funny, kind of making fun of himself, making fun of, kind of poking fun at other members. One thing is an example, Jeff Van Drew, who was a Democrat and then switched to Republican. He pointed out Jeff Van Drew and he said, "Where is Jeff? Is Jeff in here?" And he wasn't in there. And he said, maybe he turned back to being a Democrat. Just kind of poking fun of folks. But it was really a rallying cry saying, look, we've got to get this done. This is what we've promised the American people, and we've got to make sure that it happens. So it was quite a deal. I was in the third row, just kind of marveling at the whole thing. It was quite a presentation by the president.
Representative, I want to ask you about Congress's ability to deliver on the Trump agenda. I mean, the president's been very active with executive orders, but you get a different president and many of those executive orders just swap out and go the other direction. Can a Republican-led Congress, a Republican-led Senate solidify what Donald Trump's been trying to initiate via these executive orders?
Yeah, there's some of it we can do, and some of it's going to require 60 votes in the Senate. I do think there's a lot that was in this bill. Now, the reconciliation process is about the budget and making sure that the either increase in spending or decrease in spending, those sorts of things are accounted for. That's what reconciliation is about. But certainly you can change the priorities of the country by doing that, and that's what we tried to do in this reconciliation bill, and I think you see that. And so there's a lot of the executive orders that the president has already done that I think were reflected in this bill. There's a whole host of others that we're going to get to right after reconciliation. The problem with those is they're going to take 60 votes to pass in the United States Senate, and 60 votes. We didn't see a single Democrat vote on reconciliation last night. I don't think you'll see any votes for reconciliation in the Senate from Democrats either. So, are they going to be willing to play ball on this? So, I had some hope when the Lake and Riley Act came through. There were 59 Democrats in the House who voted for the Lake and Riley Act. But since then, it seems like they just are pretty hell-bent on making sure that they stop the Trump agenda. And they were very angry today. You could tell they were deflated. They're used to winning. They're used to Republicans falling apart and not being able to stick together. And they were, I think, shocked by it. I mentioned this the other day. There were several of them on the last vote we had on the budget resolution. Mike Johnson was trying to get the last couple of votes, and a couple of my Democrat colleagues who are very nice were sitting kind of behind me, And they said, just take your loss, Mike. Take your loss and go home. And I just turned around and smiled, and I said, you are underestimating Mike Johnson. I think he's going to get this done. And, of course, he did on that, and he did deliver this morning. And he's been an amazing speaker. I think many people underestimate Mike Johnson. He's very closely in communication with the president, and he's doing an incredible job of getting the president's agenda through the House of Representatives.
The big, beautiful bill passing the House of Representatives, and Jeff Crank joining us to give us initial insight on it, giving us a really exclusive, great interview. Representative, thank you so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show
Yes,
today.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Well, guys, listen, thanks for having me. I do one last thing I just forgot to point out to you. It was literally called One Big Beautiful Bill Act. That's what the title of the bill is. So it was the president wanted it named that, and that's what it's named. And it was kind of fun. And I will tell you, Democrats hate it when it's called that. So anyways,
ironically, it's what Bill's wife calls him.
Yeah, exactly. Because I've been putting on the pounds. Way too many gummy bears. Way too many gummy bears.
Maybe it was named after you, Bill. I never thought of that.
At first I thought so, and I'm like, no, they wouldn't do that.
All right.
Hey, but I'm telling you, Congressman, if you need someone to dress up like, in Schoolhouse Rock, dress up as the Bill and dance around and stuff, I'm your man. I'm just saying I have I have a high threshold for public embarrassment, so just keep that in mind. I'm willing to help out. I will make the sacrifice.
I will call Speaker Johnson and let him know that. So.
I'm sure he'll get right on that. Thank you, sir.
Representative, thank you so much for the time today.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet, guys. Thanks.
Representative Jeff Crank joining us upon the historic passing of the big, beautiful bill by one singular vote, I think, right?
Yeah.
One singular vote.
Thanks to a dead Democrat. Just going to throw that in there again, because I have to.
I should have asked him about that.
I didn't want to. I thought that, because here's the reason, is I thought about asking about that, and I'm like, because I thought whatever his answer is, that can become a soundbite. And I'm like, I'm not going to put him out on that plank and force him to answer for my dumbass question. I'm like, that's just not fair. He's given us some time this morning. There are other times that we'll go back and forth, but yeah, I'm like, I'm not going to put him in that tight this morning. So yeah, it was cool. That was great.
All right, well, let's talk about water, guys. Colorado Farm Bureau, whether you pulled out your skis or snowmobiles this last winter, it was a great year for winter fun, but the snow means even more to Colorado agriculture, and I want you to know that our state's farmers and ranchers are doing their part to protect our future water resources. The people of Colorado agriculture always have conservation, efficiency, reuse top of mind when it comes to water. As the metro area continues to grow, the Colorado Farm Bureau leads talks with state policymakers about preserving water for all areas of the state. As pressure on our water system grows, it's going to take all of us to find a solution. My friends at the Colorado Farm Bureau are leaders in water conservation and water policy. They understand how to balance water for crops and water for families, and they're doing more with less. You can do your part. I recommend you join and become a member today. Go to coloradofarmbureau.com. That's coloradofarmbureau.com to join the great people that are looking out for our water here in Colorado. All right, what do you think of the big, beautiful bill? And we're not talking about the man that sits across from me.
Boom, chicka burner.
Call 303-69. Oh, the visions in my mind are terrible.
You're going to have to go wash your eyes out with soap during the break.
303-696-1971. 303-696-1971. Or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. 720-819-5115. We do have some breaking news coming in right now. CIA guards have shot a driver who has tried to ram the security gate at CIA headquarters in Virginia just hours after 2 Israeli diplomats were shot in Washington, D.C. We'll continue to track this story as well. All right. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're making Andrew laugh. Big, beautiful Bill in trunks and hunks.
I think that's our next live event. And again, you can decide what the word trunks means in that particular sentence. Is it have to do with swimwear or male entertainers? I'm just saying that, it's up to you.
Or just elephants.
Sure, take the easy way out.
All right, we just wrapped up an interview with Jeff Crank on the big, beautiful bill. Democrats claiming that the sky is falling and people are dying everywhere as a result of it. Let's go to the phone lines. Gary, Denver. Good morning, Gary. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Oh, good morning. A couple of months ago, I made a prediction to Bill, and he said he was going to write it down, but I'm sure that was just performative. But what I said
I'm sure it's here somewhere. The problem is, Gary, is where? I'm certain I wrote it down. The issue is getting my hands on it.
Oh, yeah. That's all right.
Yeah, that's the issue.
I'll remind you. I said it was very clear they were going to run up the deficit. They did so, $5 trillion. And it's a big, beautiful bill. It's the bill that our children are going to receive in order to pay down the debt. And also, I don't know if you're aware, there was a Treasury auction 2 days ago, and it didn't go so well. The interest rate on 30-year was above 5%, and it's going to continue to head north because of this big, beautiful bill. And you combine that with the tariff inflation, and it's going to be a lot of bills that our children are going to have to pay. And what Mr. Crank said, I wanted to point out one thing. And, Trump's sycophants count on us not being very intelligent. He said they're going to be you're going to be able to deduct your interest on your car. And I think it was Jeff or you, Bill, said, well, most rich people don't take out loans for cars, but low-income people do. But if you understand the tax code, in order to deduct the interest on the car, you're going to have to not take the standard deduction and itemize, which 90% of people don't itemize. They take the standard deduction that's doubled in the TJ Inflation Act bill. You take the standard deduction, so it's worthless. Being able to deduct the interest on a car, people aren't going to use it, so it's net zero.
Yeah, I think there are a couple problems that I like what you're saying, Gary, and I do believe that, some of these tax breaks in there are being a little bit hidden. One of the things, and I want your opinion on this one, is, and I didn't get to talk to Congressman Crank about this, is some of the GDP growth that is assumed inside the bill. Is what I was reading about it is they are assuming 3% growth. We don't really ever have 3% growth. I can only think of, 2 quarters in the previous decade that we've hit that number or come close. And so what I'm really worried about is that a lot of these claims about revenue and savings are based on funny math, that it won't happen.
Yeah, they go back to the old song and dance, which I predicted 2 months ago. Oh, the economy's going to grow. The CBO can't use dynamic growth, which means increasing the GDP. And that just doesn't happen. It didn't happen when Trump first implemented the new tax code. GDP did not increase to the extent he predicted. So that's just another line that the sycophants of Trump and Trump himself are trying to drive down the throats of people who just don't understand these things.
The other one, Gary, that I think that I'm worried that people don't understand is that I think it was either the CBO or another analysis talked about in the next decade, this budget plan will increase the deficit but also reduce revenue. The numbers I was seeing were right around a $4 trillion in reduction in revenue. And I understand people in the Laffer curve, but there are some problems and fallacies contained therein. And what I'm worried about is the idea of a reduction in the revenue the government is receiving. And we do have the, no tax on tips, partial no tax on Social Security. There are a lot of those there. But if we talk about those kitchen table issues and running the country budget like you would run your family budget, if you and your wife were discussing a massive deficit for the family in spending, I don't think she would appreciate when you suggested to her, hey, honey, how about we make less money? I don't think that's going to be a plan that is going to help you climb out of your debt hole. And that's what I hear. That's what I'm hearing that we're doing is not only are we taking all these tax cuts, but we're cutting revenue so we can't possibly climb out of this hole.
Yeah, and some of the work I do with the IRS is we do look at things like that. And in the first Trump administration, the revenues were just like 0.1% higher than the prior year. So you're right. They'll try to drive that down the throats of people who don't understand these things, and it's a disaster. It's a big disaster.
What do you do to Jeff Crank's argument that, all right, if we don't do anything, we're stuck paying Nancy Pelosi's budget? We just keep moving forward with that, and the tax breaks expire. And
well, you don't have to do both. You could have changed. Maintain the tax code for certain provisions and not others, like taxes for the wealthy. I thought one of the things they could have done. I understand the tax code right now. Individuals pay either 22 or 24%. Most people. If he would have just changed that to individuals pay 15%. And that would have been a huge break for low-income people, and it would have stimulated the economy because you inject all that spending into the economy instead of doing what they did, which is a disaster.
Gary, appreciate your insight.
Thanks, Gary
from Denver, 303-696-1971 is the phone line, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. You guys all know I'm very sympathetic to Thomas Massey and those out there that are going, this thing's going to drive the deficit. But to Jeff Crank's point, he's one of 217. He doesn't get to make all the decisions.
No.
Either
and he's new.
We vote on what's put before us and we move forward with that, or we continue with what Nancy Pelosi's budget, which was chugging along, and you can protect some of these tax breaks that Trump implemented in his first term and extend those, get some cuts in. Planned Parenthood no longer receiving money via Medicaid, work requirements on Medicaid. So yeah, you probably couldn't get everything you wanted. This is definitely a step forward, much better than what Nancy Pelosi had. I probably would have voted for it too. All right, we'll continue in the 9 o'clock hour. We're going to be joined by the editorial page editor of the Denver Gazette, Dan Niegelmeyer. And I will get that pronunciation correct before Dan gets up.
So glad you did that. I would have messed
and
it up.
We're going to be talking Jared Polis withholding funds from local counties that don't do his bidding. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is KNUS.
9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Thursday, May 22nd, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. We all know Colorado's blue, but America's red. It all meets right here on the Jeff and Bill Show, where most importantly, you get to be a part of the conversation by giving us a call at 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. Editorial in the Denver Gazette: Colorado cities rightly rise up against the governor on land use. The governor trying to push via the legislature these new land use requirements, parking requirements, high-density developments. Well, a number of cities are suing. Aurora, Arvada, Glendale, Greenwood Village, Lafayette, Westminster have all sued the state and Denver District Court to stop Polis and the legislature from steamrolling them and their citizens. The Gazette saying, good for them. We're going to talk with one of the editorial board members, in fact, the editorial page editor, Dan Nigomir, will be joining us here in just a second. But now it's time for your morning dose of news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning. Beautiful outside. Thursday, 55 and sunny in Denver. Expecting a high of 77 today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
First big vote I've been down on the floor for, other than, the speaker and things, but nothing quite this big. And I don't know if I'll have a bigger vote that I'll ever cast than the one we cast today.
Colorado Representative Jeff Crank on the show with Jeff and Billy last hour during the Purple Rain. The big, beautiful bill has passed, now headed to the Senate.
I mean, I would have preferred it to be much less spending. I would have liked to see us cut a lot more government. But, I don't get to decide just by myself. I got elected to a job where I've got to work and get 217 of my colleagues to go along with whatever idea I have. And, that's the problem with folks like Tom Massey, right? They just, it's easy to go and vote no and then send out fundraising letters and tell everybody that, you're more conservative than your colleagues. But, at the end of the day, are you really moving the needle?
Yes, exactly. You have to keep fighting the commies on the left. Not perfect, but it ain't status quo. Here's Jim Jordan.
Told them last fall, you elect us, we will secure the border. President Trump has done that. We allocate resources in this bill to make sure it stays secure. We told people last fall, you elect us, we will respect moms and dads. We will let you have school choice where you can pick the school where your son or daughter is going to get the best education. And we told people last fall, you elect us, we're going to treat you with the respect you deserve. Able-bodied people in our welfare system will have to work if they're going to get your money. This bill does what we said we were going to do. That's why it's a good day for our country.
30-year-old Elias Rodriguez is in custody after he murdered in cold blood 2 Israeli embassy staff members outside D.C.'s Capitol Jewish Museum. Sickening. It's just so horrific. He was being arrested and cuffed last night, and here's what this dirtbag said.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Officials say Rodriguez was pacing the area shortly before the shooting and waited for a group of people to leave before opening fire. Enjoy life in prison. This is exactly why I support the death penalty. Unbelievable. San Diego officials say a small plane hit about 15 homes when it crashed into a military housing neighborhood. The FAA says that the Cessna private jet was headed to Montgomery Gibbs Executive Airport at the time of the crash. Reporter Jim Fink.
The entire side of a building, entire side of a residence that is just collapsed and burned. 5, 6 cars, 7 cars destroyed with flames. My best estimate would be that it came down faster than it was ready for, hit the side of a home, and then skidded down the street while catching multiple cars on fire as it went maybe about 50 or 60 feet.
Right now, the only deaths were those on the plane, but they haven't confirmed how many were on board. The Supreme Court is blocking what would have been the nation's first publicly funded, got to get this here, publicly funded religious charter school.
The case is out of Oklahoma, where there were plans for a Catholic virtual school. The state Supreme Court shot it down, saying it was unconstitutional. That was appealed to the nation's highest court, which was split at 4-4. Justice Amy Coney Barrett recused herself, although it's not known why. When that happens, the lower court's ruling is upheld. The justices did not explain their vote. The ruling only applies to Oklahoma, meaning...
Yeah, that's
Sorry
a bummer.
about that. Everything, that's a bummer.
And Amy Coney Barrett was friends, law school friends with the Solicitor General or the Attorney General of Oklahoma, one of the others. So that's why she recused herself. But yeah, I'm interested to see the analysis on this one. It looks like Christians and Protestants, Catholics are going to continue to have to pay twice for education out there.
Exactly.
Property taxes, and then when you want your values, you have to go pay for it separately.
I hate
but the left
that.
gets to push their values through the school system.
Sure, absolutely. Throw those rainbow flags everywhere. There you go. Put them in the classroom. Hey, really quickly, the U.S. Attorney General, Pam Bondi, says that the death penalty is a possibility for the suspect, the guy... Yeah, so who murdered two people in D.C. last night. So
well, I mean, the point being in this, the death's terrible, tragic. But could you imagine being a Jewish family waking up this morning, knowing that
any family
that that they're targeting Jews out there?
Oh,
you're going to send your kids to school.
Absolutely.
You're going to take them to track practice or whatever it might be. You know that these lunatic Hamas sympathizers are out there just Jew hunting. It's terrible.
Absolutely. No, and they believe the propaganda. They believe everything they hear. They're indoctrinated. They're brainwashed. As you well know, you saw it in Chicago. It's horrible. It really is.
No,
it's frightening.
It's got to be death penalty. You got to send a message back.
Yep.
You do this stuff, straight to the chair.
You are correct. 54 in Glendale, 52 in Castle Pines, 55 in Denver. Jeff and Billy, the red and the blue, and the purple rain continues. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your 710 5-day forecast. Morning temperatures will be in the mid-40s under a clearing sky. Then skies throughout our Thursday will be sunny. Highs will be in the middle and upper 70s with lows upper 40s Thursday night. Cannot rule out a couple evening thunderstorms Thursday. Shower and thunderstorms, though, will pick up more in coverage by late Friday, continuing Memorial Day weekend. Highs mid-80s and lows lower 50s on Friday. Weather brought to you by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather. Schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection at roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
We got breaking news coming in from CBS. Woman shot after failing to stop at CIA headquarters gate. A woman was shot by CIA security Thursday morning. She drove up to the gate at the agency's headquarters and failed to stop. The woman was taken to a medical facility with what law enforcement officials believe was a non-fatal gunshot wound to the upper body. There was a security incident that law enforcement responded to outside CIA headquarters, a spokesperson said. The main gate is currently closed until further notice. Additional details will be made available as appropriate. CIA and FBI are looking into the incident. The CIA headquarters is located in Langley, Virginia, about 9 miles outside of Washington, D.C. Again, a breaking story. Woman shot after failing to stop at CIA headquarters. We'll give you the latest as that comes in. I want to talk to you about our friends over at L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. All right, so our air conditioner broke on us last year, made for a long, hot summer. Not fun. And did the research, spoke to a number of different HVAC companies that came out and interviewed and spent time with us and gave us proposals. The folks we chose, L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, they absolutely nailed it for us. 1-day installation, no stress, personal service from start to finish, and they even followed up to make sure everything was perfect. Now, our home is finally comfortable no matter what the weather. L&L Heating and Air Conditioning gave us peace of mind. Here's their current deals. They got a free programmable thermostat or carbon monoxide detector with new furnace or air conditioner installation. This is really important. No emergency charges, a $0 trip fee, price match value guarantee on equipment. They'll give you a free estimate. They're licensed and insured and have a 5-year labor warranty. Everything works great. Our family couldn't be happier. So if you're looking for fast, honest, reliable service, I highly recommend L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. Here's their phone number, 720-851-1691. 720-851-1691. Online at bestdenverhvac.com. That's bestdenverhvac.com. I'm sure glad we called them. That number again, 720-851-1691. All right, joining us now is Dan Negomir. He's the editorial page editor of the Denver Gazette. Great piece out saying that Colorado cities are rightly rising up against the governor on land issues. Dan, thank you for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yes, good morning.
My pleasure.
All right, Dan, so let's talk about this editorial. What's the governor, the legislature doing? Who's suing him? Give us the details on all this.
First clarification on editorials, just for the record. Editorials reflect the views of the ownership and management of Clarity Media-owned Gazette, and not necessarily of any one individual. So it's not me who's writing. I'm a scribe, but those aren't just my views. Those are the views of our institution. It's our institutional voice. You know that, but I just wanted to say that for
fantastic.
Who aren't.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, for the last 2 years, the legislature, at the governor's behest, has been enacting a series of bills, all of which micromanage zoning in our communities around Colorado. That historically and constitutionally and statutorily is a power reserved to cities, and for good reason. You know, the old Jeffersonian maxim about the government closest to the people being the government which governs best. Not always, but better than governments higher up the line. It comes into play here. Obviously, a local city council or a county commission has a better idea and certainly more direct feedback from the citizens as to what the zoning needs are for their community, what the land use should be. The legislature, at the governor's behest, has been passing a series of bills that has instead vested that power in the state. To cut to the chase, and there have been many developments in the interim. 6 cities this week sued and said, you can't do that.
Those cities being, and you could detail them out here, Aurora, Arvada, Glendale, Greenwood Village, Lafayette, and Westminster, because the governor's threatening to even keep some funds, right? If these localities aren't willing to do his bidding on high-density multifamily development.
That's right, and to what extent he's bluffing versus he'll follow through is an interesting political question in its own right. Don't know the answer to that, but the cities are saying we're not going to take this sitting down. And in fact, that was on last Friday that the governor had issued that executive order just because he sensed this was coming. On Monday, they sued. And in part, they're suing over the executive order, but they're also suing to stop the implementation of the legislation itself. They picked 2 bills out of several that had been passed over the last 2 years, 2 bills in particular, one of which micromanages parking requirements in cities, the other of which micromanages the actual density, that is to say how many housing units, let's say it's an apartment building or something, or even single-family dwellings, how many can be on an acre. The big picture here is something we shouldn't lose sight of. The big picture is that there is because this may sound like just a bunch of hair splitting, but it's a lot more. There's something fundamental that's at stake here, and that is 2 things, actually. One is, whose power is it? And that's the one I detailed already. Is it the prerogative of the city or of the state? in determining what land use should be in any given community. And as I noted, I think, certainly our institutional perspective is that makes a lot more sense to be vested in locals. And the people who founded Colorado, who chartered it with its original founding charter, our state constitution, wrote that into there, and they wrote it into statutes subsequently saying this is a power that belongs to the cities, because it makes sense. And particularly cities known as home rule cities, which is a number of cities in Colorado, which reserve to themselves even more autonomy. But there's another thing at stake here, too, and it's really fundamental, and it's the view of how people should live. Should we all be clustered together? And if so, why? There is a movement nationwide in one part of the political spectrum, or I should say it's pushed by one part of the political spectrum, to get people to live closer together. That's not a bad thing in and of itself, certainly not for people who choose to do that. I'm not saying everyone should be on a cabin out on the back 40. I don't know if that's even practical. But what's happened is the natural flow of social change over the time in the United States, especially, has led to the I guess you could say a special respect that has been accorded to the single-family dwelling. That's always been viewed as the American dream. We certainly don't think there's anything shameful about that, and we think that's great if that's the American dream. Why shouldn't people aspire to owning their own home, however big, however small, on a little patch of land, typically a lot, 9,000 square feet. They're getting smaller nowadays out in some of the more recently developed subdivisions. This, for some reason, has become stigmatized, anathema, to people who see themselves, from my perspective, as brighter than us, and who have a better idea of how we're supposed to live, how we're supposed to configure our daily lives. They don't like us living out in the suburbs in single-family dwellings on individual lots and getting into our cars and driving to our jobs or to our errands or take the kids to Little League or soccer. They don't like that. They want us to live closer together and to be able to walk and bike. You hear that one a lot, walk and bike to store. And they have this vision, this, and some would call it just a utopian vision. And the emphasis being that it's not going to happen. And they want us to all be clustered closer together. Believe it or not, as grandiose as it sounds, that's what this legislation ultimately is driven by philosophically. Now, will it succeed? Even if allowed to proceed, that's a very good question.
That's Dan Negomir. He's the editorial page editor of the Denver Gazette. The editorial board out with a piece titled "Colorado Cities Rightly Rise Up Against the Governor on Land Use." And Dan, you're exactly right. It's this frustration and anger and hatred that progressives have towards cars. The idea that you would drive to soccer, drive to the grocery store, drive to work, drive to school, take the kids all this place. Well, all of the emissions that come from those cars, plus we now have to build roads and highways and populations moving into Colorado. It brings up more congestion that they don't like. So what they've done is build this train system that goes downtown.
I was hoping you were going to get to this.
I notice it because I drive by Ridgegate all the time. We're right off of I-25 in Ridgegate down in south of Denver. And they've built the train, and now they want to force the communities along this train track, right? Like if you look at the cities in this lawsuit, Aurora, Arvada, Glendale, Greenwood Village, Lafayette, Westminster, well, there's all trains there. And they want to force those localities to do high-density apartment complex buildings alongside those trains so that people, I guess, will actually use the trains because they don't right now. So to your point, Dan, it's geared towards this worldview and this vision that all along the I-25 corridor, you're going to have lots of apartment complexes and people taking trains as if we're Chicago, New York, or Washington, D.C.
Well, let me add two things to that, and that's well stated. First of all, as regards the hostility toward the car, I'm glad you brought that up. Again, I think that's unrealistic. That's just not the way the United States, or the majority of the United States, is developed, but for some of the oldest communities out in the northeast corridor of the United States. So it's just not realistic. And yet they keep trying to pound that square peg into the round hole of reality on cars as on everything else in this agenda. And another way in which they're doing that is, and this is one of the two pieces of legislation that's cited in the lawsuit, is the bill that basically says no cities may any longer require through their local zoning power that, let's say I'm a developer and I want to put up a 300-unit apartment building. Heck, let's make it a 1,200-unit apartment complex, one of these really large ones, that I have to provide parking. They can't even require that of me. And which, of course, is insanity. I mean, it's a recipe for chaos. How are you going to put up apartments, whether they're near light rail or not, without a parking lot? Well, of course, or covered parking, or whatever that particular, echelon of apartment development, that hypothetical one, would require. Well, their idea is, yes, exactly. They're all going to jump on the train. Guess what? They're not. People don't.
It makes sense if you're in a young working city. Like, I lived in D.C. for 6 years. I lived right across from a metro station, and we specifically lived there because we worked in the city. But then once you started having kids with soccer requirements and schooling and then groceries and all, it doesn't make any sense anymore. So it works if you're New York, if the density's there, if the commuter kind of big office building makes sense, but Denver isn't that. Bill, go ahead.
No, not at all. And what I want to add to this, and we're talking with Dan Negomir. He is the editorial page editor of the Denver Gazette, talking about an editorial that came out in the Gazette. He was the scribe. It's not necessarily his solo voice, but is representative of the Denver Gazette, talking about 6 local cities that have sued the governor over certain bills that have passed, and it has to do with density and housing and rules. One of them, as we just outlined, Dan outlined eloquently, the idea of no parking. Now, again, let's say that you're building, just for a second, I'm going to go on a sidetrack. We're building a large apartment or even a condo complex, and they're going to say no parking. How do you then compete with the other buildings that already offer it? That is a convenience feature for many renters. Not many of them are coming to you with no cars, nor are they saying, hey, let's go find a new apartment or condo to rent or own, and I need to sell my car. Not a lot of people are doing that, and I think what we are forgetting, I think with the lawmakers here, I think, Jeff, you really gave a good job on giving voice to this, that they think that we are living in cities like back east, where it's high density and it's close. What is the reason people come to Colorado and stay? We have a lot of former professional athletes that decide to put down roots here because of the lifestyle and the outdoor recreation. The thing that drives me nuts is we celebrate our entertainment and recreational opportunities on the plains in southern Colorado and especially in the mountains. We need to get there in a car. The trains are not efficient. It's not going to work. You can't mass transit your way into outdoor recreation. It doesn't work in this state. The reason people are here is because of the opportunities for outdoor recreation. And in order to get there, you need a car. It's going to be very difficult for you to get on a train and then find an Uber to take you to the hiking trail. Not gonna happen. I have a pain point in my life with this. They talked about the idea of running a train up the mountains. Guess what? Train doesn't go where I need it to. So my dumbass is gonna have to get an Uber after I get to the train and then go to the location where I need to go. So you're asking me, rather than getting in my car, you're saying the better choice for me is to, 1, drive my car down to the train station, unpack the car, wait at the train, put my stuff into the train, ride the train, unpack my stuff out of the train. And this is for like a week-long trip. We're not talking about a day trip. We're going on vacation. I got to take my stuff out of the train, wait for the Uber, put my stuff back in another car, and then get in the car and then drive to my destination. Why in the hell would I ever choose that? instead of putting the stuff in the back of my own darn car that I already drove to the train station and then go up to the mountains. And let's just assume that I'm even close to that train station in the first place and I've done the mass transit. Now I got to take all my stuff down to the train station and then I got to get on the train and we repeat the entire cycle. No, I'm not going on vacation hauling my wife, myself, our 4 kids, and all the luggage down to the train to get into an Uber in a mountain town. Just maddening. It's as if the lawmakers here in Colorado don't understand why we are living in Colorado. Okay, I'm going to get down off my soapbox.
Bill, you got it exactly right. I mean, when you think about it, it's almost like the script to a Simpsons episode. It's a self-parody. It's a self-parody, and it can't happen on so many levels. I mean, as you're talking, I'm just thinking of all the different missing links in this chain that only these self-anointed visionaries seem to be able to see. I mean, think about RTD. Really? We're going to rely on RTD to get us anywhere? Never mind the crime problems they've been having, although to their credit, they're trying to beef up policing of late, belatedly, of their buses and especially the trains and the train platforms. The trains, as you pointed out, don't go most of the places people want to and need to go. But let me also throw this out there is, what about, I don't know, young professionals, maybe they're single, maybe they're willing to even give up a car and they live in an apartment complex by light rail. That's not everyone. And the goal, I think, of this, again, the sort of the star by which the people who are pushing this agenda navigate is let's break down existing neighborhoods. And that's another component of this that's very controversial and running into a lot of opposition, including in my town here where I live in Littleton. They're trying to even break down traditional R1 zone single-family dwelling neighborhoods as if there's something wrong with that. You shouldn't be parking your car in your garage and getting in it and going 1.5 miles, 2 miles to Supers to get your groceries. Heaven's sake, what's the matter with you? That's so irresponsible. And no one seems to be able to tell me exactly why that is. What if I'm driving a Tesla? I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's wrong. You're just wrong. You shouldn't be doing that. You should live above, I don't know, a little greengrocer somewhere and just walk downstairs and buy your avocados and then, walk your kids down the street to the school. In a sense, it's really nice. It's a nice image, but here's the problem. It's Legoland. It's not reality. It's some fantasy that they've come up with. It's almost something you'd see on top of a cake. These little play structures. It's not reality. It's not how people live, and it's certainly not how you can accommodate, let's say, our metro area of going on 3 million people. It's not how people live. They can't live their lives that way. And the part of this agenda is not just to get everybody on trains and buses and out of their cars, which is, as I say, unrealistic. It's also to get them living in neighborhoods where everybody's clustered more closely together. Even if that's a desirable goal, and even if a lot of people wanted it, it cannot happen. But I can tell you a lot of people love traditional single-family dwelling neighborhoods. They don't want a lot of commercial development in them because it's how we live.
You're absolutely right. That is Dan Negomir. He is the editorial page editor at the Denver Gazette. And this is what we're going to talk about, Dan, is pretty much when you are imagining the American dream growing up, it is the single-family dwelling, the house with the picket fence outside. That's been part of the American dream for generations. And now I hear our Democrat lawmakers in Colorado saying, no, we need to erase that classic American dream. Instead, you need to aspire to owning a small square apartment in a highly dense neighborhood living near a train. You've seen all those pictures in Hong Kong. Those people look super happy with their high-density living and trains and busy streets. That's what we need now.
Well, and you do a really good job, Dan, pointing this out in your piece that Jared Polis has at times rushed to defend local control. And a number of amicus briefs he filed at certain points, he has stood strong for local control. But then all of a sudden now he's going to pull funding and put the weight of the state upon localities to abide by high-density development plans coming from the left? Give us a little insight on that.
Well, Jeff, let's do that. In fact, let's shift gears here. We've been talking about their high-flying philosophy that's kind of 50,000 feet in the air and not rooted on planet Earth. The flip side of it is there's some real hardball politics going on here. And I think our governor, whom no one has ever accused of being other than smart, is smart enough to get a lot of what we're talking about here this morning. He gets it. He sees that. He knows that. And despite the fact that he grew up in Boulder, he knows that. He gets how people live. And he also gets what the limits are of his own ambitions. But remember, as we pointed out in our editorial voice, Jared Polis wants to be known as various things. It's called a political legacy, right? Everyone, or not everyone, but a lot of people who run for political office and win it want it. And they want to shape it, and they jealously guard their quote-unquote political legacy. Part of he wants to be that he wants to be seen as the governor who solved the quote-end-quote housing crisis, or affordable housing crisis, as it's often referred to in Colorado. Now, whether you even buy that there is an affordable housing crisis per se, there's a lot of numbers lately, macroeconomic statistics of the state that suggest otherwise, that maybe we're trending away from an affordable, or at least away from a housing crisis or a housing shortage. But whether or not you buy into that, what you have to understand is I think Polis wants to be able to say, box checked, I passed that agenda. And nothing's going to stop him. Hence last week's executive order, which was quite an overreach. For him, it's pretty bold. You know, Jared is also nothing if not, all friends to all sides in all disputes. And for him to stick his neck out that far suggests two things. One, sweat is beating up on his forehead on this issue. And two, that he is bound and determined to see it through because it's part of his legacy. He wants to be known as the guy who solved the housing crisis.
I think that's fantastic analysis. Dan Negomir, editorial page editor of the Denver Gazette. Go, friends, and get a subscription to the Denver Gazette. Go to denvergazette.com. It's the best newspaper out there.
Best
by
reporting
far.
in town, hands
Good
down.
reporting, great editorials, and they carry guys like Jimmy Sangenberger regularly who are my must-reads every single week. By far the best newspaper in the state, the Gazette. Go to denvergazette.com and get a subscription right there. Dan, great interview. Thank you for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show today.
Yes, thank you, sir. Hope you have a good day.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, let's talk about another great guy, Dan Caplis with Dan Caplis Law. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values because who you choose to represent you in an injury case, well, it says a lot about you to everybody involved in the case. Here's Dan's background. He's the son of a police officer and a former seminarian who's dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is also believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado state history. Dan Caplis Law, the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call. Here's the phone number, 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. Here's what we're talking about. The state legislature has passed a series of laws driving up high-density multifamily development along the I-25 corridor along with the trains to get people out of their cars into the trains. They want lots of apartment complexes. Local counties, Aurora, Arvada, Glendale, Greenwood Village, Lafayette, Westminster going, we don't want to be a part of this, guys. We want our communities to look like the way our constituents want them to look like. Don't be forcing this stuff down from on high. Governor Polis then issued an executive order going, you don't abide by these new local zoning requirements? Well, I'm going to keep funding from you. And now these counties suing the governor, suing the state. Where do you fall along all this? Is it important for Denver to modernize? We need to get into the public transportation business like New York, like Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, Chicago, and it's time for Denver to become like one of those cities? Or is this just liberal, progressive fantasy land trying to force everybody else to live by it, and it's just going to create problems? Join the conversation, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS. Get out of your cars.
So, Bill, I get the sense talking to Dan he's the editorial director of the Denver Gazette, Dan Negomir, that Democrats are essentially fundamentally trying to transform the I-25 corridor.
Yeah.
They want the high density. They want the apartments. They want you riding trains. They want people heading downtown on trains. And I'm not sure it's ever going to work. We're not New York. We're not Washington, D.C. You don't have, the density, but you don't have the industry either, right? You have the financial sector, so you have high-rise after high-rise after high-rise in New York City that's just full of people with the stock market and all that stuff. D.C., you got government. I mean, Colorado shut out the oil and gas industry, so at this point, I don't know. What do you go downtown to work for? Who do you go downtown to work for?
Yeah, that's the problem. And I do think that fundamentally the goals of the Democrats are misaligned to the lifestyle of Colorado. I think that the goals of higher density is aspirational, but I think they also should be realistic, that the better sell, rather than high density because we want you to use the mass transit, rather than saying this is the best fit for everybody, they should be focusing on this is a great first step, just like you outlined in Washington, D.C., that it is a wonderful first step to have high-density housing with mass transit that will take you into the employment center inside the city. But as soon as the family starts to grow, and I know your kids, like the first time that a child needs to get to soccer practice or piano practice, the mass transit may not be the best way because of convenience.
Too.
Yes.
I mean, when you're going to basketball practice in February.
Oh, exactly.
I mean,
yeah. Or taking the kids to the track banquet that gets home at 10 o'clock at night. We all know how much fun that is when you're riding the train at 10 o'clock at night. You're like, oh, this is great. Yeah, we're going to learn some new words here, kids, and we'll have to explain them to you afterwards.
I think the industry's got to be there to warrant it, and Colorado doesn't have it. At one point it did. It had all these buildings were full of oil and gas operations that were taking place. Well, the Democrats got rid of all that. They tried clean new energy, but that industry didn't take off. So buildings downtown are literally selling for pennies on the dollar. There's nobody that goes downtown to work in anything.
Yeah.
So you might go downtown for a restaurant or play, but that's it.
Oh, yeah. And I have lived both, in the suburbs where I am now. I've lived just outside of downtown, and I have lived deep in downtown. I've been right off of Capitol Hill. I've lived there. And so I understand the advantages of mass transit inside the city, and especially alternative modes of transportation. One of the things I used to do is I would get, when I was living downtown, I would go and make sure that I got a year pass for Elitch's. Some of them may have been comped by radio stations I was working at, but that was wonderful. And so what I would do is wait until it rained. And as soon as it rained, as soon as it started to stop, I'd grab my bike and I would bike across downtown to Elitch's. And I knew that I've got 25 minutes of free rides. Nobody else on anything.
Yeah,
and then
it's
I would
not
just
Denver.
ride the bike home.
It's not DC,
No,
it's not New York,
but
it's none of that stuff.
That only made sense for me as a younger guy living downtown in order to do that. As soon as you grow up, it doesn't make any sense. And the other thing I want to just highlight is let's talk about our state's approach to immigration and especially sanctuary cities. Because we have what I would consider to be liberal mayors, liberal lawmakers, and a liberal governor defending the state on the individual right of our state to talk about the immigration policies we want to enforce. That it is supposed to be state and cities are allowed to make that decision, yet those same lawmakers are not willing to let the individual make a choice on one, where they live, or two, how they're going to get around Colorado.
Yeah. Yep.
That's crap.
And when the Democrats get Bill all up in their grill, they're really, really wrong.
Yeah, they've got something really wrong, man, when I'm mad.
Look, speaking of youthfulness, many of us had great heads of hair. And if that has gone, we've got the solution for you. It happens to all of us, guys. That hair thins out. Well, we've got a simple one-day treatment that starts growing your own natural hair the very next day, and it's guaranteed to grow for life. It's the Advanced FUE from Advanced Hair. We've all seen the pills and lotions that come with monthly subscriptions. They help retain what you have, but what if what you want is your own natural hair permanently in specific areas? From Advanced Hair's state-of-the-art facilities to world-class Dr. Tanya Pauls, it's not maybe your hair will regrow. It's guaranteed that your new hair will grow. You decide how much, how thick, and where. It's why Advanced Hair is the winner of Westward's Best of Denver. For your free consultation, $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Give us a call at 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader. We are News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, it's been an absolutely fantastic show. Trump's big, beautiful bill passing the House of Representatives by a single vote. We talked with Representative Jeff Crank as he detailed the final negotiations, the meeting with the president that took place yesterday, and his thoughts on the impact this bill will have on your pocketbook. So if you missed that, go to 710knus.com to download the podcast. By the way, just confirming now, Representative Lauren Boebert will be joining us tomorrow to talk the big, beautiful bill as well.
Look at our show.
This would be awesome. Excuse me. We all know that it's tough here in Colorado with crime, those types of things. If you run a business, you got to protect it. We have the solution for you. Alarm detection systems, highest level of service and expertise. They coordinate it all into one source. So your cameras, key card access, fire and intrusion systems are all handled in one spot, okay? Listen to some of these offers that they have for you. Expert alarm installation, testing by highly trained technicians, 24/7 professional monitoring, same day or next day service upon request, dedicated teams for cameras, access control, and fire alarms, and over 300 security professionals working for you. Choosing ADS means your business stays protected and will be ready to open tomorrow. They combine human monitoring with the latest AI camera technology to prevent crime in real time, trusted by small and large businesses, including many Colorado schools. Visit adsalarm.com, alarm detection systems, adsalarm.com to schedule your appointment with them. All right. Bill, it's been a wild show. We'll be back tomorrow. Representative Lauren Boebert will be joining us. You've been listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
And they call me Big Beautiful Bill in private. This is KNUS.